Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto has challenged his fellow African leaders to take the discourse on agriculture beyond production to value addition and manufacturing. He said Africa has the potential to produce surplus food for export, noting that this can generate more income and create jobs, especially for the youth. Speaking during the Dakar 2 summit, Feed Africa in Senegal, President Ruto said these are the initiatives that will transform Africa. In panel discussions of 10 heads of states and governments, President Ruto said the scaling of agriculture in the continent would require the right input, technology, enhanced irrigation and mechanization. He warned against dependence on rain-fed agriculture, saying many countries in Africa experience hunger due to this. Irrigation, the president explained, will assure Africa of enough food for consumption and export. Now, Azimio leader Raila Odinga says outgoing IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati and the other three commissioners have not disputed the results released by the whistleblower because they know they are genuine. In results made public by Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, Azimio team claimed that Raila won the August general election with 8.1 million votes against President William Ruto's 5.9 million votes.
Kwa hivyo yale ambayo yuko pale hakuna mtu ambaye anaweza kukanya. Unaona wamekaa kimya. Hiyo ni ukweli mtupu, hiyo matokeo. Tangu itoke mpaka leo Chebukati na wenzake hajaongea. Hata yule mbana yetu sijui Marjan nani Hussein hajaongea, yeye yuko pale. Maana yake hiyo ni ukweli mtupu. Imerushwa na mtu ambaye anafanya kazi na IEBC ambaye ametoa hiyo kweli. Kwa sababu hakuna mtu ambaye anaweza kukana hiyo.
Speaking in Nairobi, Raila responded to President William Ruto claims that the server had been opened for them to verify the results. The Azimio leader said it wasn't true as they'd received a letter from Smartmatic claiming that their request was impossible.
Tuliona kama Julie Ruto anasema kule kwa mazishi ati Chebukati alifungua saba kitambo. Uliza siku gani? Alifungua saba siku gani? Katika mahakama mliona wakili zetu Mheshimiwa Murgor akishout kusema we have not been given access to the servers. Akiwaambia wale majudges. Alafu hiyo kampuni inaitwa Smartmatic aliandika barua ya kusema ati we cannot allow access to the servers because doing so will infringe on our proprietary rights and interfere with the results of elections elsewhere. Hii ni kampuni ambaye iliajiriwa na Kenya. Sasa kuna dispute juu ya matokeo. Unaambia fungua server tuangalie kitu gani ilipo ndani yake. Wanakataa. Alafu mahakama inaenda kukubaliana wao. Shame on them.
Now, the controversy surrounding the disbursement of NGCDF funds between Treasury and members of Parliament has been resolved following a closed-door meeting led by National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula. The legislators, led by a parliamentary committee chairperson for NGCDF, Musa Sirma, said the government has released 4 billion shillings and a further 2 billion shillings that will be released today. The MPs have agreed to continue with their retreat that will now be extended to Saturday to cover for the wasted days.
Kuomba msamaha kwa kukosa kutupatia pesa vile waliahidi. Ya pili ni kwamba kufikia leo tumepata pesa kama bilioni 4. Jana na leo imekuwa bilioni 4. So na wiki ijayo tutakuwa tumefikisha bilioni 10. Tunataka kusema ya kwamba hiyo tutakuwa tumekaribia ile bajeti ambayo inahitajika katika basari ambaye watu wanahitaji kama 50 million ndio waweze kupeana basari.
Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro says Treasury had to release the funds meant for public primary and secondary schools first, which also caused their delay.
And these delays have been occasioned by the timing. As you are aware, we have our schools reopening, and the government facilitates every pupil and every student with capitation money. This is a very urgent need for the government, and therefore resources have gone into facilitating our schools to be able to reopen efficiently.
Speaker amekuja ameweza kuleta suluhu kwamba hizi pesa zimeanza kutumwa katika account ya kila constituency vile alivyoeleza kinara wetu.
Now, former President Uhuru Kenyatta has expressed concern about the rapidly deteriorating situation in the eastern DRC's North Kivu region, where fighting erupted between various armed groups, including the armed forces of the Republic of Congo and the M23. In a statement, Uhuru urged the DRC government and the international community to increase their assistance to IDPs displaced by the conflict. And the Nairobi court has ruled that 6 suspects charged with the 2014 murder of former Juja Member of Parliament George Thuo have a case to answer. According to Justice Roslyn Langat Korir, the prosecution had proved its case against the accused persons beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecution had called 30 witnesses and adduced 10 exhibits during the trial. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Good morning and welcome to Thursday. What does it look like on these streets? There's a pickup of traffic already starting on Jogo Road, and it looks like it will be a busy morning. Some coming off of the Thika Superhighway as well as Westlands is building up, really slowly. For now, you should be able to get through and through without too much of a headache. There's a little bit of traffic building up on Matthew Maradaima Drift. It's going to take you out towards the Nyeri Stadium. But before that, you should be all right. Coming out from Greater Mombasa Road, out from Kitengela through towards Cabanas, not too much of an issue there. It's going to hold you up just at the Maradaima, but then you should be all right after General Motors. This is just for now. The morning has just started to perk up. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. We want to keep things moving this Thursday. This chair is doing upside down.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 8 minutes after 6. Good morning and welcome to Thursday, 26th day of January 2023. How are you doing? Ndu? How is it?
It's fine, no?
Is it in?
It's in.
It's in? Good.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. City Muga.
Eric?
It's Thursday.
Yes, Thursday.
It's Thursday.
The day before Friday.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Excellent.
You said that jacket is what color? Crimson red.
Wow. You see? Well done.
Is it?
Crimson. Well done, actually. But this is cherry red.
See.
Okay, and this speaker...
The speaker thing.
It's the same color as your jacket.
Is it?
It is. You see?
This thing has a bit of orange.
Yeah. It's not the same color. You said maroon is red.
It's kind of red.
And pink?
Pink is not red. Pink is pink. Now with pink you have fuchsia, you have hot pink, you have mauve.
Mauve is a pink?
Mauve is it's a pink.
I mean the days when color.
Fuchsia also is a pink.
And you had black, green, yellow.
And lilac.
Lilac is a purple.
And purple is not a pink.
No, it's not.
And
Lavender is also
and
purple.
it's not a red.
No.
Right.
Sindio.
You have said, we have agreed.
Thank you very much. How are you doing, Eric?
Me, I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Wunderbar.
Yeah. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. What we'll be having several conversations. It's Thursday. It's Justice Thursdays. Let's talk about auctioneers. Okay? Now, economy, those people have been misbehaving.
Okwende.
Yes. Now, did you know there's actually an auctioneer's licensing board?
I do. I even know where they're nestled.
Boss, what business haven't you done?
You buy rocks, supply medical things.
I'm trying to think what I haven't done.
Shylocking, auctioneering.
I'm trying to think what I haven't done. I'll tell you.
Hey. What? So where are the offices?
Insurance Plaza,
And what are they supposed to do?
4th floor.
Fourth floor.
Door number?
Surely. Door numbers.
You float
3 to 7.
you float in the yao.
So
No.
they have an entire floor.
You're in the yao.
An entire floor
You're in the yao.
to license auctioneers.
Well, apart
What?
from just licensing, there's a discussion around who should do what, who should. The licensing comes with other things. It's not just
Like
a
what?
license. Like how you qualify. If you have a dispute with an auctioneer, what the rules governing these things are, blah 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 blah. Vitu kama hizo. Apart from just the licensing, if someone license, you can revoke your license.
Indeed.
And to revoke your license means there needs to be evidence. So you need a platform in which one can have a discussion about why it is you think that particular license should be revoked, or that particular auctioneer should be kicked out of the auctioneering business, etc., etc. Yes.
So to apply to be an auctioneer, you must be mean looking, number one. You must be rude, number two.
That's according to the act.
Yes.
You must not give a damn about anything.
Number three. Anyway, the chairperson of the Auctioneers Licensing Board, the Honorable Peter Gesora, joins us at 7 a.m. He'll tell us what kind of issues they tackle at the Auctioneers Board and the kind of complaints that they hear from people who have been done like that by auctioneers. At 8 o'clock, Saitaba Olekanchori was the chief agent for the Azimio presidential candidate in the August 2022 general election. Now, he will be joining us to tell us which way forward for Azimio la Umoja. We know that on the day that there was that rally in Kamkunji, Saitabo had tweeted and said, "Plus, Bwana Baba, can you give us
Direction.
clear direction
Or left, or
on what
right.
we should do?" So he'll come here and tell us. So which direction is that he wants to be given? Mtu mzima unaitisha directions.
Allah. If you don't ask for directions, you'll do what?
He's
You
a
get
man.
lost. Men are the worst in asking for directions.
Exactly.
You should be happy that this one is asking.
Why is this man asking for directions? Is he breaking the bro code?
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Saitaba Olekanchori joins us at 8 a.m. At 9 o'clock, let's talk about PEPFAR. You said PEPFAR is the presidential U.S. President's Emergency
Aid.
Yes, President's Emergency Fund for
Hey, it has just left my...
for AIDS
I'm going to let you guys struggle with that one.
response.
Just mull through the rest of the
Endelea tu
response.
na hiyo tu, you're on the right track. Once you're not in a presidential,
FAR for AIDS response.
yes, now. See,
President's
yes,
Emergency
see.
What is program?
You just keep struggling with it. Endelea tu.
Wait. Wait, let me
PEPFAR.
just cheat.
PEPFAR.
Let me just cheat. The United States President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. Why should we be
The
struggling?
word plan.
Plan.
Is what refused to plan
AIDS
for
Program,
relief.
plan.
The F is for.
For AIDS relief,
F
I
is
said.
for.
Yeah, I said FAR is for AIDS
For
relief.
AIDS relief.
The P was the issue for me.
Okay.
The President's Emergency Plan, Program, Fund for AIDS relief. So we'll be having that conversation, reimagining FEPFAR and their partnerships and what they've done in this country. Professor Craig Cohen is a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, Department of Obstetrics, those ones on gynecology, right?
So,
and reproductive sciences. So he'll be here. And Professor Elizabeth Bukusi is a senior principal clinical research scientist at the Center for Microbiology Research at the Research of Kenya. Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Are you together so far? The two professors will be joining us at 9 a.m. for that discussion. Yeah.
Your shout not all right.
Tell us about COVID.
Let me do that. Global numbers we're looking at as of 24 hours, in the last 24 hours, 674,028,379. Pyongyang, you know Pyongyang? You know where that is?
Korea.
Very good. Pyongyang is now under a 5-day COVID-19 lockdown, and reports of North Koreans panic buying food ahead of lockdown triggered by a rising case of respiratory illness. Remember that we're looking at this part of the world, and this is what they've been calling it, respiratory illness. It's not been outwardly called COVID, but, you know, they've said, look, this is what we're going to do. They've ordered a 5-day lockdown in Pyongyang, specifically the capital, amid rising cases of an unspecified respiratory illness. Could it be COVID? Well, okay. The government announced that residents are required to stay in their homes until the end of Sunday, submit multiple temperature checks every day. The notice did not mention COVID-19, of course, but North Korea did not do so during its first outbreak last year. Remember when they were insisting on fever? They were one of the first countries to stay away from calling it COVID. They said fever. Another country that we saw doing that maybe, 2 years before that was Tanzania, whereby it was not directly said, this is COVID. It was, respiratory illness, homa hivi. Now, North Korea acknowledged its first COVID outbreak last year only, but with limited testing ability, they did not confirm the number of people who had contracted the virus.
Limited testing ability?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? They declared victory over the outbreak in August. Remember, they also came out to say, we are what?
Winners.
We are COVID-free. We are done. We are good. We don't have a problem. Well, maybe not. Now that Pyongyang has said, we're going to keep people at home for the next 5 days and see what exactly is going on. But again, still calling it respiratory illness, not coming out and saying it's COVID, if indeed it is.
But see, it's a COVID.
It's a COVID, yeah. And so this is the interesting thing, that before the coronavirus, there have been flus of the COVID strain. It's just that, it wasn't as
COVID as this other.
It wasn't as COVID as this other one has been COVIDing, right? So that's what it has been. Ministry of Health tells us that in Kenya, 13 people have tested positive from a sample size of 453 in the last 24 hours. Still things on a lull. Acting Director of Health has told us that Kenya has achieved herd immunity. So the only way to mitigate, and we can repeat this until we're blue in the face, the only way to mitigate against getting severe symptoms from a variant of COVID is to get vaccinated. But in terms of herd immunity, Kenya has achieved this. But to further protect yourself in the future, get your vax on, folks. That's what it looks like for COVID.
Okay. It's 19 minutes after 6. We are live streaming the show. Let us know where you're locked in from this morning, and we will acknowledge your presence shortly. First, we take a look at the weather forecasts.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
You're not.
Since I'm not shipping up.
You're my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the sheep man.
One of Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they'd been told to write composition about a sheep. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the sheep or sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
We're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 16, highs of 28 through Thursday. It's 13 and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 and a partly cloudy in Nyeri at 10. 11 degrees and partly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 32 in Mombasa, where it's partly cloudy this morning at 24, 26, and cloudy conditions in Malindi, highs of 31. And we'll see highs of 31 as well in Kisumu, where it's cloudy this morning at 19. Cloudy skies at 14 in Kakamega, highs of 32. And looking into Kampala, it's 19 and clear, highs of 29. It's 27 and mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Clear conditions at 14 in Johannesburg with highs of 26. And it will go to highs of 33 in a mostly clear Lagos at 27. 23 and mostly cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 32. Looking out into Beijing, it's -5 and cloudy Thursday afternoon. They'll see highs of 1 and lows of -10. It's 0 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 5, and we'll see highs of 8 in a cloudy London at 4. There's a coastal flood in New York Wednesday night at 9 degrees. It's raining through and through. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 9 and lows of 6.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I don't know what that thing is doing.
Just leave it.
Yeah, surely. Okay. You do the thing. Tell us.
Okay. People are online this morning and they're saying, good morning. Farista Muganda is tuned in from Mumias. And he says, Niko Ndani and Pango Mzima wa the Situation Room. Ndani ya Spice FM. Okay.
Ndani.
Mochama James says, good morning, Bwakire. Getting you loud and clear from Gashie. Mochama Onuonga. All right, Spice FM, great people. Good morning, great people. Ndu otutuama to you, my friend. CT Ichionadi. Ichionadi.
You have woken up how?
You have woken up how?
Ichionadi.
Latif, Jambo.
Jabo Migi. Jabo.
City Center, Jabo. City Center is tuned, Kabisa.
Okay.
Rahma Derek says good morning. Kakat Frank says he's tuned in this morning as well. Catherine Gogoyo is tuned in from Kinunga in Nyeri. Appreciate you guys. Have a fabulous day in City and Latif. Indeed, you too, Jane Duta. Dennis is tuned in from Kapinguria. Jambo 254 and a favorite morning trio. Atieno is tuned in from Kisumu. Jambo Umazi. To be an auctioneer, si ukwe na roho jahe. What? What is that?
You know jahe?
Black beans.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now imagine.
Sheesh. Okay. Now we'll see when moyo kabisa is what he's saying. Staying locked. Good morning, Umazi. Hi guys, this is Zachary. He says good morning. We thank God for his mercies that we have woken up to see another day indeed. Great morning and great program. Good morning to you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in from Kamtusi Mwingi on Dicho. We see you. Good morning to you, Robert. And Collins is tuned in and says have a great one to you. Monis Janeth tuned in from Singapore. How nice to have you in the room this morning. Okay, who else is here? Quite a number of guys. Newton, we see you. Odero, good morning. Mwalimu, how are you doing in EMC? Karibu Sana. And another Collins tuned in from Eldoret. Streaming live from Mombasa is where Al Haji is. We see you all this morning. Thanks for joining us, guys. Karibu.
Brenda also says she's streaming in.
It's so mischievous.
From Nairobi.
Can you finish?
It's a stream in Nairobi. City. We are still in Angola.
We are still in Angola.
Jonas Savimbi's country.
Yes. Dos Santos country. Yes. Very rich country.
Telling you.
Very interesting country. Very interesting proverbs from that very interesting country.
Okay.
All right. Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree. Let your imagination fly, brother. Set it free.
Ndu, what's up?
She doesn't want to despise the nut. Right. One day, you never know, it will become a palm tree. Right. See? The country with humorous proverbs.
Okay, let's get back here.
Sour.
The headlines. What's on the front pages?
Okay, why don't I look at the headline in the Star, okay? While the two of you are trying to determine how you should despise the nut. Right. Shake up in military looms as top guns retire.
Yeah?
The pun is intended here.
Oy.
Shake up in military looms as top guns retire. Ruto faces tough options as top KDF officers, including Kibochi, who is the Chief of General Staff, or rather Chief of Defense Forces, are set to retire from service. Tradition rules next Chief of Staff Forces must come from Kenya Air Force.
Yes.
Yes.
And the Vice Chief of Defense Forces is one Lieutenant General Ogola.
Yes, Francis Ogola.
And one Lieutenant General Ogola
is also set to...
Is he?
According to
He's
this...
under fire as per his involvement.
Alleged involvement in what
trying to blah, blah.
What. And I don't know what. But then the second highest officer serving in the Kenya Air Force is the commander of the Kenya Air Force. No, is the... what do you call it? This gentleman, did he retire? He's not retired from the military.
Which one?
Lieutenant General Badi.
No, he didn't.
Mohammed Badi.
Yes, he did not retire. No.
Bado Kwapo.
Yes.
But he's also set to retire.
He just finished his duties at the NMS and then,
Yes.
Just went back to the barracks.
Yes, he did.
Hey, so Atiruto faces a tough task.
According to this particular headline, yes, he does. I don't...
You don't see the toughness?
No. No. Unless you are saying...
that it's a political appointment, the military.
Unless we're saying, because the requirement is that there is a defense council that then advises the president on how to go about this matter. Okay? So, we shall read about it and talk about it some more.
Okay, let's look at other headlines. In the Standard, shock tragedy of the Magohas. Of course, they ticked all the boxes of members of a successful family, dedicating their lives to serve in three corners of the world. But the last few days and years have dampened the brothers' story, transforming it into a heartbreak, a tale of rare brains plucked at the peak of their careers. That's what we see there. Okay, and then KRA has yet another plan to crush tax cheats. And then, before you had an opportunity to pull anything up, Kenya Power strikes new bid to increase electricity cost. Telling you, they're saying they have no choice. But okay, we'll look into that story in a bit. On the front page of The Nation, Ryla's game plan. Apparently there's a game plan, an action plan rather. Action plan number 1. Should I start telling you or we just wait? I'm just saying there's
Ryla has a game plan.
There's a game plan and we'll give you those details in a bit.
Why?
MPs have their way as the NGCDF is released and Treasury sends 4 billion shillings to constituencies. The state is in talks with World Bank on junior high labs. These are necessary. And the state is saying, okay, perhaps we can have a conversation about how y'all can fund this, right? That's on the back page of The Nation. Look at those stories.
Hiya, the Business Daily. Kenya Power seeks increase of electricity prices by up to 78%. The threshold for accessing subsidy cut to 30 units from 100 and higher tariffs to put pressure on inflation. That is story number 1. Story number 2. Parliament stops banks from asking clients their sources of cash.
Of course.
Pesa ni yako, maswali ya nini? Parliament wanataka nayo. This is after the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula declared the rules on large cash transactions which were introduced by the CBK in 2016 illegal because they were not approved by Parliament. Okay. Higher. Twende.
Okay.
There's another one. Taxpayers left with the 10 billion shilling fines for road tender breaches. Road agencies have left taxpayers with bills of nearly 10 billion shillings following breaches of contracts with international firms, raising questions about thoroughness of procurement officials in the sector that gulps the lion's share of Kenya's development budget. 10 billion shilling in fines. In Uchezo. The Hustler Fund loans hit 15.9 billion shillings in 2 months. And Centum Unit wins Vipingo Land Row against Local. The subsidiary of Centum Investment Company has won a battle for over 3,900 acre parcel of land against a group of residents in Kilifi after a judge ruled that a title being held by the community was illegal. Let's take that break. It's 29 minutes after to 7 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. We'll be looking at the newspaper headlines in great detail next.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice!
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me. It's
How are things turning out this morning? Where are you? Let us know what might be happening where you are. There's still a little bit of that traffic that's turning over that Imaradaima drift. Probably come to an end as you approach General Motors and then out towards the Nyeri National Stadium. You should be all right there. It looks all right coming off of Gong Road for now. We saw that whole mess that tends to open up at around 7:30 coming in from Gitanga Road and Gong Road, Naivasha Road, that area. On Jogger Road, some traffic is building up, and we already see traffic building up on the Thika Superhighway. It's coming off on Juja Road as well. Everybody touching on Outer Ring. There is some traffic as well coming off Manyanja, so we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, it looks like it's all right. You should be able to get where you're going without too much of a problem. Yes, schools have opened, but traffic doesn't seem to be that terrible. But we'll see at traffic hour when it begins. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us about what might be happening in your neck of the woods as we keep things moving this morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, tell us the story.
So the questions that we were asking the other day, so now what? What does this mean? After you say that you're not going to recognize the government of the day as a new leader, Raila Odinga. So what does that mean exactly for the people who are waiting with bated breath? So apparently there's a plan. So he's plotting a gradual escalation of resistance against President William Ruto. Okay?
Gradual escalation.
Which could ultimately snowball into a call for civil disobedience and mass action.
Okay.
This, even as he has made fresh revelations into how his alleged 2022 poll victory was stolen. So this is the plan. Number one, nationwide rallies. Apart from Nairobi meetings on electoral justice set for other towns. Tax resistance. Rally supporters to shun punitive taxes. I'm not quite sure what falls under punitive taxes or if they all fall into that. Okay. Product boycott. Asks supporters to shun enterprises associated with the ruling coalition leaders. International community. Lobby intervention of foreign powers on independent poll audit. And mass action. Last resort to force government to yield to the demands. Raila Odinga says the real results were out by August 10th, 2022 in the morning. But they refused to announce the results because they knew there was a problem. Okay, so this is the action plan that they want to take. Of course, it's ranked in order of, activity and appearance. Most of the story is given on page 4, but you see there's a plan. There's a picture there, and he said the strategy is to slowly pile pressure on President Ruto to force him to the negotiation table. Interviews with various coalition leaders yesterday on Mr. Odinga's endgame revealed a plan by the opposition designed to paralyze the operations of government and compel the international community to intervene to broker a compromise. Okay?
Right.
The next rally planned at Jacaranda Grounds in Embakasi East constituency, Nairobi, on Sunday will lead to a series of meetings across the country by the opposition coalition that is also seeking to exploit the apparent displeasure with some of the policies by the new administration. The NCEC, which is the Azimio National Coalition Executive Council Chairman Wycliffe Oparanya, yesterday revealed that a series of rallies have been planned to push the government to cede to their demands and include an independent scrutiny of poll servers following fresh claims that Mr. Odinga won the presidential vote.
Nisawa.
Yeah.
That's a plan.
So that's what you were, yeah.
That's a plan. It's a slow build up.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
the worst will come at the very end. If,
This is a slow build up.
1, 2, 3 has not.
Unless what happens?
So
Unless
if you do number one and
Ruto says, yes, I stole. Or
that you won, however the cookie crumbles. Either he says I stole or he says you won.
And then?
Then
he calls him to Kasarani and does the Uhuru thing of handing over power.
I don't know, man. But just know it's a graduated plan.
Okay, but in the are we saying
for him to be declared,
I'm doing this? If you don't do, then I move to the next stage.
Exactly. That's
so what is it doing? They're doing that. What does he want Ruto
so
to
if
do?
he does number one, nationwide rallies, calling together people, saying all these things, and Ruto doesn't buck.
And
go
bucking
to
is
the
doing
next-
what?
Bucking is saying, okay, actually, you know what? We look at the servers, we look at the numbers, and then we agree that you actually won, then sour. Then you can become president. If that doesn't work, we do number 2. Tax resistance. We don't
Pay tax.
punitive ones. Punitive. I don't know which ones are the punitive ones.
Taxes.
Is there any tax which isn't punitive?
So now maybe this is all taxes.
Okay.
So
So
that
he'll
if
declare.
that does not
He'll
make
tell
it-
us
because
tax number
essentially that
1,
will
number 2,
cripple
number 3.
government,
Right.
Abi, because you're not getting money in on flow every day. So then that will cripple you. You now
Resist.
cannot operate.
Okay.
If still that doesn't make you say open
Let's
the servers
open
and
the
declare me,
servers.
we go to number 3. Boycotting of your products. So you people will suffer it at your dinner table. You people who own businesses, anybody who is attached to you as the administration, we will not buy your stuff.
Right.
That means now you will suffer it at a personal level. If that does not move you to open the service and declare,
So hatutakula mayai ya Ruto.
or charcoal,
Hatununui mayai.
no.
Ruto deals in what? Chicken,
And
eggs.
charcoal. Was
Charcoal?
charcoal one of them? No, in the first few days, charcoal was somebody else. All join now, beg.
You're talking about some ancient tycoon of the previous century.
Oh, sour. So
Yes,
it was
who-
chicken
who-
and eggs.
Yeah.
We will not buy. And whatever else. I
And
don't
milk.
know.
Okay.
So if that doesn't make you buck, we will then talk to the international community.
And tell them what?
Look at what these guys are doing. If that doesn't make you buck, we'll talk to the international community and ask you to lean in on this with some pressure and say, look,
Me, I won that election.
and you guys should push for an international poll audit. And if the audit comes up with the numbers, then do what? Declare me as president.
Okay.
Now, number 5, if all of this does not make you open the service and declare me as president and say that you have stolen whatever, we will then do mass action.
And
It's the
declare me
last
president.
resort. It's the last resort to force the government to yield to the demands. The demands are open the servers, do an audit. You will find that if you do an audit of those servers, you will find who the actual winner was.
Okay.
And those are our demands. And of course, if you find the winner, then you have no choice but to declare the winner according to the audits of
And the degree of
servers.
opening the servers now is what they wanted to have access to the IP of the... Because servers were opened,
Not fully.
supervised by the court.
They said it was not fully.
It wasn't fully
It
open.
was not fully opened. So
What is fully opening?
open it completely.
Fully open means not half.
So what
We
else?
saw-
What else
it's
were they
like-
getting?
it's like your people- they only peeped through
They
the
wanted
door.
to see.
They wanted to
the
see the
code.
whole room.
You see the
They wanted to see the code. This is how.
actually it's more than just the anecdotal opening of a door. For a server to be opened, it's not someone pushes a button and suddenly you open your eyes and you can see everything you want to see. I don't think this is what they're talking about.
There are levels of it.
Yes, not only are there levels, there are all sorts of intricacies within the server, depending on what you're looking for and how you want to look for it, whether you know how to look for it. But my question is, what if you do open the server and you find that indeed William Ruto was elected the president? Then what do you do?
Then you'll go back home and just say, okay, sawa basi. I just wanted that clarity. Yeah, then people say, I want closure.
Okay. So if we have
but I'm
closure,
still
then
at the point of what server, what more information are you specifically looking for in the server? Because if you don't go with a specific request that this is exactly what I'm looking for, the point of the server is not about elections. Why not just say, forget this technology story. Let's go to all the 44,000 polling stations, open the ballot boxes, because that's where the votes are.
Yes, they are.
Let's recount. Go to KICC or Nyeri Stadium, bring all those boxes. Let's recount. Everything that got to the server started from there.
They did. But also, remember, when one talks about what is in the server, it's not just a repository, it's not just a safe where the votes were placed. Every other activity that was involved in bringing about, whether it is the tallying of the votes, whether it is everything that ended up with the results that we had for all the people who have voted for,
yes,
will be there. So where you are right is, when you say you open the servers, okay, what do you want specifically? Because instructions have to be given so that you can get the information. And remember, when that question was asked, the people who were superintending that said, sorry, we can't do that. You know why? Because, this server, apart from just what we're doing with you guys, there's also the issue of this and the other and this and the other and this and the other. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if those are the demands, well, why don't we roll this dice and see how it goes?
This is just another wild goose chase. Listen.
Why do you determine it's a wild goose chase?
If the argument is I won the election, how did the election happen?
People voted.
You and I, CT, queued, got to the queue, we were identified, we were given physical papers.
Yes, we were.
We ticked, we put them in the specific boxes.
Yes.
Those physical papers were counted. That is the vote.
Yes.
Why not just say open that box?
The reason why
there were two things that were happening in the Supreme Court at the same time. There was some recount of some specific polling stations, polling centers, and then there was the opening of the server. The argument here is not the technology, blah blah blah. The argument, number one argument, is I won the election. The election, just like the minor KI ruling and all those things have said, the election is at the polling station. The polling station does not have a server. The polling station has the physical ballot. Say, open the ballot boxes. Let's recount all these votes. Forget the server. Let's not put Jose Camargo anywhere. Let us have Kenyans who can count 1, 2, 3, and let's declare the winner. These are stories. I'm calling it wild goose chase.
If indeed there is a story with the server, then there will be also a story with the counting of the votes.
How?
Well, if I want to make an issue out of something, I will find reason to make an issue of it, won't I? There will be an issue even with a Form 34, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
That this Form 34A is not A.
Yes, and that it doesn't, there are certain things that aren't there. I can't see the duplicate. I can't see the... What am I saying? I'm saying that if this particular saga follows the trajectory it is following, we're in for a long haul because this debate is not going to end easily.
This is a negotiation, like you call it, CT, right?
It's always a negotiation because the issue of the server, this isn't the first time we're hearing the issue of the server. The election before that in 2017, the story of the server was also there. Just this guy called Tamango, who was not there. Sorry.
Camargo.
Yes. He's the one who was not there in the previous election. Okay, but in 2017, the issue around the server, the issue around the counting, if you ask me again, in this country, that's never really the issue. The issue is the high levels of mistrust that has become part and parcel of our electoral process. So irrespective of whatever happens, there's always a but.
That mistrust, I hear you, and I completely agree. It's always manufactured. It's manufactured mistrust.
Actually, given the politicians we have, I wouldn't call it manufactured. I would call it something that is amplified and something that you can actually see with great evidence before you.
It starts with that thing you just manufacture. You just say something. There's mistrust. I mean, there's this thing that many people do not understand. Call it what? Server. Talk about server.
Actually, it starts before
server, this, the other, then Supreme Court. Is it possible that these judges were compromised? Then you go with that, and you just create mistrust.
Eric, just look at the process we have of electing our leaders, where the voter is part and parcel of it, because people say, oh, people bribe. Voters demand to be bribed. They expect to be bribed. They must be bribed.
Yeah.
So the game continues. I promise I now will not deliver, but I've given you money, so what is your problem? Okay? Now, right there, at that very fundamental level, we have actually an inbuilt mistrust, and we continue with it. So it is very easy to believe whenever somebody has dissent or somebody has an opinion that is contrary, there will always be people who are willing to accept it on both sides. It doesn't matter who it is. If the shoe was in the other foot, we'd be hearing the same stories.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why I'm saying those people are the ones who manufactured the mistrust. We trusted the system. We queued up to vote and went back home.
Actually, we did.
Yeah. And in all those 1,890-something elections, how many petitions have we seen in court? Less than 100. How many are going to be successful? Maybe 20. Hey, it's a negotiation. And they both know it. Raila knows what he's negotiating. Ruto knows he's negotiating. They're screaming at each other and they'll tell each other things. The thing to watch is what does Raila want out of this process? What does Ruto want out of this process? What will Raila get out of this process? Ingine yote, to quote Raila Odinga, ni mnyambo ya punda. Kenya Power, let me tell you what they've done. They will, from April, increase by up to 78%.
Stop.
Electricity prices.
Stop. Read that again. From when?
Electricity prices will, from April, increase by up to 78% if the energy sector regulator approves new tariffs from Kenya Power that seek to withdraw the monthly subsidy that cushions poor households. The listed utility firm says it's engaging the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority for the first upward review of power prices since 2018. They should be happening every 3 years. 2018 to 2023 is how many years?
So the review, according to this particular article and in this country, the only review is when it goes up.
Oh, yeah. Besides increasing the base tariff, Kenya Power has reduced the threshold for accessing the monthly power subsidy, equivalent to a 24% discount, and they're reducing that from 100 kilowatt hours to 30 units. This will deny millions of households the subsidy that they've enjoyed since 2018, as Kenya Power seeks additional resources to upgrade its transmission network and boost profit, which ultimately allow the utility to restart dividends. Kenya Power wants to increase the cost of a unit of power for usage of less than 30 kilowatts per month to 28 shillings a unit, up from the current 20 shillings and 70 cents. That will be a 35% increase. This is based on assumptions that surcharge levies in power bills like the fuel and forex adjustments will remain at January levels. Of course, they will not remain at January levels. So this is even your kunaenda. So the job now is with the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority to see whether they'll accept this. That story is everywhere. Ask a question, madam.
Why? Are they broke? Why?
Who, Kenya Power?
Or it's just that because we have to do every 3 years, so we must do it now. What's the problem? Because you usually find that there's
So
an
the
increase
thing is
in
this,
prices.
yes.
If there's
the power tariffs should be reviewed every 3 years, upwards or downwards, right? So Kenya Power applies, IPRA approves. Now, based on various things, like cost of running the business, cost of maintaining the equipment that they have, cost of redistribution, working on their distribution network, cost of all those things, then they're coming and saying, all right, these are our costs. And the only way we get money, we only sell one product.
Sure.
So the only thing to do is to look at the price of that product. What's the cost of goods sold or services sold? Then how much should be our margin? How much should you charge? They've applied. And they're saying, we have been given a subsidy. Why are we giving a subsidy? We are giving basically a discount to small power consumers. We'd like to reduce our definition of small power consumer. Instead of saying somebody who consumes 100 kilowatt hours a year is a small power consumer, we reduce that and say someone who consumes 30. Now we are looking at the poor people. You other people are not poor.
Do you realize what it means? That if you were buying something for 100 shillings, in the next 3 months, you're going to be buying it for 178. The same thing.
Sometimes I even wonder why they bother telling us. Why don't they just increase?
Just increase it. If like increase it to 10,000.
So that we realize, it's going to increase. Okay, fine.
Let's just keep it moving.
Because, you see, this tale that we keep being regaled with, where we're being told there's some contemplation going on, in my mind, a decision has been made.
So you see what they're essentially telling you is that this cost of living that everybody's crying about right now, tighten your seatbelt.
We are going to increase it. This cost of living, we're increasing it for you.
This cost of living is even going up.
Yes, it is.
Because we know that fuel really is the driver of everything else. Fuel prices and power prices go up. You're using power to generate business in your industry. You're using power for industry. Every product that comes out as a result of having used power to create it then will go to the end user. So just power is not just power, my friends.
Can I append something to what you've just said? When you say that, yes, we know fuel is the driver or the engine of what happens in the economy, I would say yes, it's a conduit, it's an agent. But what drives is the government taxes. Because these costs we keep talking about, surely, you see, the honest conversation about how it is life can be made affordable, I don't hear it. Apart from the platitudes and the broad sweeping statements
and
that
the
one
promises of we
yes,
will, it will.
I don't hear a conversation about this are the steps that we wish to take, the direction we need to take as a government to ensure that we bring the cost of living down. So, this story of power, just increase it. In fact, forget 78, just make it 100.
Yeah, remember,
so it's a nice round figure. Yes.
Kenya Power is just a player, okay? It's a public listed company. Kenya Power is not government, it's a company, right? It's providing a service.
Kenya Power is government.
It applies for this review to the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, which is now the government regulator. IPRA has said, I have received this from Kenya Power, and as required by law, I shall subject this through public participation. Now, this is where Kenyans come in. Can we publicly participate and tell IPRA, please do not allow those guys to do those things? Ask those very many questions and go to IPRA with all the questions that you need to ask. Because IPRA said that IPRA will embark on public and stakeholder consultations aimed at collecting views from the public following that request for review of tariffs, and they're urging residents, manufacturers, companies, universities, and all energy stakeholders to engage with the Kenya Power and IPRA as Kenya Power gives its presentation on the proposed harmonized tariff application. The authority assures Kenyans that all stakeholder comments will be considered and used to come up with a final determination on the review of tariff. So, if you want your voice heard, go to IPRA and tell IPRA, skiza. Na usikize kwa makini. And then tell them.
Okay. MPs have had their way as the NGCDF released Treasury sends 4 billion shillings to constituencies. They said, look, even this Mombasa people are calling us to,
We will come, but we will not meet.
We will come, but we're not doing anything. You and your Kenya School of Government, just sit down for a minute. There's nothing you're teaching us. There's no induction until you do what? The National Treasury has agreed to send 10 billion shillings meant for constituency development so as to end the boycott of a meeting in Mombasa by members of parliament. See, industrial action works. More than 300 members of the National Assembly who had boycotted an induction seminar in Mombasa for 3 days to protest at the delayed release of the NGCDF ended their protest after the Treasury sent the first tranche of 4 billion shillings. Isn't that nice? So, immediately after this, the seminar kicked off after the cash had been wired to the constituency's accounts. It took the intervention of National Speaker Moses Wetangula to resolve the impasse during a closed-door meeting where the MPs, led by committee's chairman Musa Sirma, they said, now we have amicably resolved this thing. We don't have any problem anymore. You've sent 4 billion. Now induct us. KSG, what do you want to tell us? Bring it. Now we'll even pay attention. Before we were not even coming. Now we'll even pay attention during the meeting. Each constituency has received 34 million. And they are okay with that as they continue with the rest. They said, you know what? This thing had become very difficult. Schools were opening. People wanted bursary. People were coming for help. We did not know what to do. And then you want us to come and sit here and meanwhile our constituency members are crying. No.
Let me ask the question. Why did they go in the first place if they really wanted to boycott?
After spending money flying to Mombasa and staying in a hotel.
Or it makes more sense to actually attend, be there, and then boycott while you're there.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it.
It's the best way because you see us, but you are not. We see you. You see us, but we are not involved.
But we are not sitting.
We're not boarding.
Exactly. Now, it was a very urgent need, according to Kiharu MP in Dende Nyoro yesterday, when he said, look, this thing had to be solved the way in which, because we could not allow this kind of pressure on my head. My constituency are suffering.
Schools are opening, form ones are reporting.
Tell us things.
And we don't have money for bursary.
We don't have money for bursary. Then we come and sit here in a swanky hotel in Mombasa to be blown by palm trees and coconuts, and there's no.
Surely.
Not possible.
Now, that whole process, a walkout by MPs during the retreat to push for the release of CDF has raised questions about the cost of the meeting. Estimates indicate that 349 MPs spent 5.5 million on flights, fares, and 69.8 million on accommodation in hotels at the coast.
Okay.
For 2 days, MPs strolled to a conference hall at Pride in Paradise Hotel Shanzu to sign an attendant list and left to relax on the beach or around the swimming pool.
Nice.
Some drove away after signing the attendance list, which will be used in paying allowances, estimated to be 10,000 per day for each MP. All the 349 MPs travelled to Mombasa. Then the taxpayer could cough 3.5 million in allowances for the days that they boycotted the retreats. Some MPs travelled with their aides and drivers. However, the support staff interviewed said they each spend an average of 5,000 a day on accommodation and meals. Okay. According to the program, the MPs will be at the coast for a week for the retreat that will be facilitated by trainers from Ghana and Uganda. How much is it going to cost us? A lot of money.
As we say, this kind of story, they turn my belly.
A lot of money. Walk in, walk out. It's a small price to pay anyway for our children.
Then they really
for our children to get bursary.
But that's what you just read.
If we spend this 75 million shillings and our children get bursary,
then it's okay.
But also, if you look at it carefully,
you have to spend money to make money.
They've tightened their belts because they're only receiving 10,000 shillings per day for allowances. They could have received
for a meeting they haven't attended.
Yes, exactly. I mean, surely this is belt tightening, and they're leading by example.
It's not much.
It's not much, and it's really surely. We all know that such matters are best discussed when you're sitting at the coast, looking at the vast Indian Ocean.
Yeah,
there's no other way to do it. I mean, yeah.
Naivasha may not quite cut it.
No.
The coast does.
You need the balmy feeling of the coast.
And you need to fly there. I mean, driving down the escarpment.
What?
No, tiresome thing.
Yeah, it's too mainstream.
You
Yes,
drive
exactly.
from Kisi to no.
Drive down the escarpment here to go to Naivasha.
No.
For all you know, you may get stuck at Gilgil.
Yeah.
No.
Kaya Airport. Just go expressway, get to the airport, fly down to the coast.
Yes,
Done.
and take a flight. Just one flight and then back again, another one flight.
Good morning. Keep you here for more conversations. It's 7 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto has challenged his fellow African leaders to take the discourse on agriculture beyond production to value addition and manufacturing. He said Africa has the potential to produce surplus food for export, noting that these can generate more income and create jobs, especially for the youth. Speaking during the Dakar 2 Summit, Feed Africa in Senegal, President Ruto said these are the initiatives that will transform Africa. In panel discussion of 10 heads of states and government, President Ruto said the upscaling of agriculture in the continent would require the right input technology, enhanced irrigation and mechanization. He warned against dependence on rain-fed agriculture, saying many countries in Africa experience hunger due to this. Irrigation, the president explained, will assure Africa of enough food for consumption and export. And Azimio leader Raila Odinga says outgoing IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati and the other 3 commissioners have not disputed the results released by the whistleblower because they know they are genuine. In results made public by Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, Azimio team claimed that Raila won the August 9th general election with 8.1 million votes against President William Ruto's 5.9 million votes.
Kwa hivyo yale ambayo yuko pale hakuna mtu ambaye anaweza kukanya. Tunaona wamekaa kimya. Hiyo ni ukuli mtupu, hiyo matokeo. Tangu itoke mpaka leo Chebukati na wenzake hajaongea. Hata yule mbana anaitwa sijui Marjan nani Hussein hajaongea, yeye yuko pale. Maana yake hiyo ni ukweli mtupu. Imerushwa na mtu ambaye anafanya kazi na IEBC ambaye ametoa hiyo kweli. Kwa sababu hakuna mtu ambaye anaweza kukanya hiyo.
Speaking in Nairobi, Raila responded to President William Ruto's claims that the servers had been opened for them to verify the results. The Azimio leader said it wasn't true as they'd received a letter from Smartmatic claiming that their request was impossible.
Tuliona kama Julie Ruto anasema kule kwa mazishi ati Chebukati alifungua 7 kitambo. Uliza siku gani? Alifungua 7 siku gani? Katika mahakama mliona wakili zetu Mheshimiwa Murgor akishout kusema we have not been given access to the servers. Akiwaambia wale majudges. Alafu hiyo kampuni inaitwa Smartmatic aliandika barua ya kusema ati we cannot allow access to the servers because doing so will infringe on our proprietary rights and interfere with the results of elections elsewhere. Hii ni kampuni ambaye iliajiriwa na Kenya. Sasa kuna dispute juu ya matokeo. Unaambia fungua server tuangalie kitu gani ilipo ndani yake. Wanakataa. Alafu mahakama inaenda kukubaliana na wao. Shame on them.
The controversy surrounding the disbursement of NGCDF funds between Treasury and members of Parliament has been resolved following a closed meeting led by National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula. The legislators, led by Parliamentary Committee Chairperson for NGCDF Musa Sirma, said the government has released 4 billion shillings and a further 2 billion shillings will be released today. The MPs have agreed to continue with their retreat that will now be extended to Saturday to cover for the wasted days. Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro says Treasury had to release the funds meant for public primary and secondary schools first, which also caused the delay.
And these delays have been occasioned by the timing. As you are aware, we have our schools reopening, and the government facilitates every pupil and every student with capitation money. This is a very urgent need for the government, and therefore resources have gone into facilitating our schools to be able to reopen efficiently.
Spika amekuja ameweza kuleta suluhu kwamba hizi pesa zimeanza kutumwa katika accounts ya kila constituency vile alivyoeleza kinara wetu.
And former President Uhuru Kenyatta has expressed concern about the rapidly deteriorating situation in the eastern DRC's North Kivu region, where fighting has erupted between various armed groups, including the Armed Forces of the Republic of Congo (FARDC) and the M23. In a statement, Uhuru urged the DRC government and the international community to increase their assistance to IDPs displaced by the conflict. And a Nairobi court has ruled that 6 suspects charged with the 2014 murder of former Juja Member of Parliament client George Thuo have a case to answer. According to Justice Rosalind Langat Korir, the prosecution had proved its case against the accused persons beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecution had called 30 witnesses and adduced 10 exhibits during the trial. It is alleged that they committed the offence on the night of November 17, 2013 at Porky's Garden Restaurant in Thika Town within Kiambu County, with others not before court. They denied the charge when arraigned in court for plea on January 14, 2014. The accused Apollo Wanaina Boyo alias Sheki, Christopher Lumbazo and Dick alias Lumba, Andrew Karanja Wanaina, Samuel Koria Ngugi alias Visi, Esther Ndinda Mulinge, Ruth Womathai Irungu alias Atlanta. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
And now is when we see it, a little bit of traffic building up in many parts of the city into the CBDs, where a lot of it is coming in from the Thika Superhighway, coming in from Jogo Road and then from Landis. We're also seeing traffic has built up from Naivasha Road onto Ngong Road out into the city. Folks having a very difficult time this morning right around Ruaka, that whole area. Not quite sure what is causing that traffic, but it's a gridlock. Okay, let's look outside of the city as well. Folks who are trying to come Nairobi bound are stuck around Gilgil. Kikope, there is a hold-up. Not quite sure what's causing that, but it looks really crazy, at least for now. All right, here's your alternate route. If you're stuck at that Two Rivers, Ruaka area, Limuru Road, use the Eastern Bypass or the Gashie route. All right, that stagnant jam is causing a bit of problems for people this morning, and there might be an accident up ahead. We do not know, so use the alternate route for now. Let's take a look in a short while and see what it looks like, hoping that all this opens up. Talk to us on SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
7
day.
minutes after 7. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room, Thursday, 26th day of January 2023. The Situation Room broadcasts every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on SpiceFM across the country, on KTN Home across the country, on YouTube and Facebook across this planet Earth. Wherever you are locked in, habari za asubuhi, za mchana, za usiku, wherever you are. Now, in a few days' time, you should be able to be telling someone where you live. You know, where do you live? I live on 265 Elma Apartments. Yeah. Where is that? 265 Elma Apartments. It's on Mwiki Road.
Mwiki.
Okay. In Nairobi. Where is that? It's in Kasarani area, the general Kasarani neighborhood. Not so far from the Thika Superhighway. 3 kilometers from the Thika Superhighway is the 265 Elma Apartments. This is the new development by Centum Real Estate. They're putting up apartments there from studios to 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and they are going for as low as 2.5 million shillings. Thinking about owning a home? Think about converting your current rent into going towards home ownership. If you are, talking about between 20,000, 60,000 shillings. Well, even if you earn 200,000 shillings, you can still buy a house at Elma. Okay, it's not exclusive to anyone. You can still buy a house at 265 Elma Apartments. All you need to do is put a down payment of 250,000 shillings, and then to talk to Centum Real Estate and tell them, I want to start my journey towards home ownership. The rest of the installments will be paid in flexible terms. You can actually even go to your SACCO or your bank and take the balance na ulipe polepole. Text the word Elmer, ELMER, to 22365. That's ELMER to 22365. And you know what they'll do? They'll send you a message. They'll tell you, my friend, you want to join the address? Come, we take you there and show you. And you'll go and see. And you'll like it. We have a guest in the studio. We want to be talking about auctioneers in Kenya. Ndu?
Yes.
As we do this whole thing, please open the page on the paper that you're holding, on the page that has the auctioneers
I'll do
page.
that.
I'm opening the one on the Standard. City will do the same for the Star.
Right.
Because we want to talk about the auctioneers trade in this country. They are actually regulated. And the person who is joining us in the studio this morning is the chairperson of the Auctioneers Licensing Board. He's the Honorable Peter Gesora. We welcome him the way we welcome our guests, by giving him the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for this week come from the country of Angola. Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree.
Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree.
Yes. Now the nut we're referring to here isn't the nuts and bolts. Okay? Because the nuts and bolts, even if you bury it under the sun, the best that will happen, it may acquire some rust. That's it. This one is the one which actually is a seed.
From the palm tree.
From the palm tree.
Not any other seed.
No, the reference here is the palm tree.
The nut here we're talking about is the seed of the palm tree.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Honorable Gesora, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much.
The hot seat of the Situation Room.
I'm glad to be here.
Your proverb. What's your interpretation of it? What are the Angolans saying?
My take is that you should not bury probably your talent because one day it will work for you and become a palm. And you reap out of it as a fully grown tree, the palm.
Don't just tell yourself, well, this is, it's nothing. It can't be of any use to me.
That, of course, reflects in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
In the sense that don't bury your talent, because realize it at the earliest and should be able to work for you in the future. Yes.
Indeed. I'm looking at page 43 of the Standard today, and I'm seeing several adverts here for auctions. Public auction, public auction, public auction. Have you found the pages?
Yes, I have.
How many adverts do you see?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on one page.
What? It's auction, it's auction, it's auction.
Yep.
Did you know that auctioneers are actually licensed? Did you?
I did not. The impression that is actually given to many, or that we all have, a lot of us have, is that, you can rock up today, open up a little shop in the middle of town and slap on the sign, Ndu auctioneers, and then you can get hired by folks or you have to look a little bit more mean than I do, and then, start harassing people who've not done 1, 2, 3 or the other. Licensing, it would have been the farthest thing from my imagination that auctioneers are licensed.
That actually happens. Your Honor, you license auctioneers.
Yes, I do.
First of all, you are a judicial officer.
Yes.
What are you doing licensing auctioneers?
I think to bring you to perspective, it will be very important to lay a background of how the board came to be.
Yes.
As it were. To start with, it's set up by an Act of Parliament, the Auctioneers Act, Cap 526. If you look at that act, Section 3 of the act sets up the board itself and who is to sit on the board. Section 4 sets out the mandates of the board, which is to license and regulate the trade. Number 2, to entertain complaints against auctioneers and adjudicate on them in a precise way, and a decision is made, which is appealable. Thirdly, to conduct trainings on best practices that have emerged throughout the world in terms of improving the service delivery by auctioneers. And fourthly, there is a sweeping provision that gives the board what we call powers to self-regulate itself in terms of its operations for the betterment of the conduct of the trade in our jurisdiction. So yes, it is there. We have a secretariat, fully fledged secretariat, which is operational from Monday to Friday. And we are housed at Reinsurance Plaza, 4th floor.
City knows.
Hey,
Thought he was actually joking. He said, Reinsurance Plaza, 4th floor.
Yes, along Taifa Road.
Yes.
And our offices are open from 8 to 5. And we receive all manner of documents relating to auctioneers, be it applications for renewals, be it complaints, be it documents from our line ministries and the judiciary. And we are a government, semi-government autonomous agency, commonly known as SAGAS, in government. That is to say, a parastatal under the government.
Okay. How does a judicial officer end up chairing this board?
Yes, thank you very much. You realize that auctioneering comes at the tail end of any judicial process. That is to say, a suit has been filed, evidence has been taken, a judgment has been rendered, and the auctioneer kicks in at that stage to execute for the purposes of realizing the fruits of that judgment. And therefore, the framers of the Act are categorical that this being a judicial process, it has to be headed by a judicial officer.
Okay.
And that is clearly spelled out in Section 3 of the said Act.
Okay.
That informs why.
Why the Honorable Peter Gesora is currently the chair.
Yes, and again...
Are you employed by the Judicial Service Commission or are you now employed by the SAGA?
I am an employee as a judicial officer of the rank of Chief Magistrate. But at the same time, I double up as the chair of that board. You'll realize one thing also, I think, for information, that we don't sit on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
We are not a board like any other board for a company or corporation. Ordinarily, our activities are restricted to 1 week bi-monthly. Okay, that will mean 5 sessions in a year.
Does bi-monthly means once in 2 months?
Yes,
or twice?
once in 2 months.
Twice in a month.
Twice in a month.
No.
Sorry.
Once in 2 months.
Okay.
This is on realization that the composition of the board brings on board various actors who are drawn from different organizations and who have a day-to-day mandate to carry out their tasks in their respective organization, and therefore it will not work for us if we are to meet on a day-to-day basis. But the Secretariat is on a day-to-day basis, full-time, and therefore that is how we operate.
You know, with the Act, this Act that we speak of, many things that relate to the process of auctioneering changed. Because once upon a time, it was just the wild, wild west. You actually got the impression that auctioneers were a breed apart from every other system. Would I be wrong in saying that they have now been brought under the judiciary?
Exactly. Gone are the days, and I think that is the impression that is out there.
Yes.
That you'd wake up in the morning, you have no roof over your head, or your babies have been thrown out and your belongings, household goods, are being carted away, and you have nowhere, no shelter, for example. On realizing this, there was a hue and cry, and government came to the rescue of Mwananchi by now regulating this position by enacting this act.
Therefore, that must have set in place minimum qualifications for one to be registered as an auctioneer.
Exactly.
And what are those?
Now, there are two classes of auctioneers, Class A and Class B. Class A is the lower class, at the entry point, that is to say, where if you want to join the auctioneering trade, then you must have been an apprentice and a seasoned auctioneer who was not less than 10 years standing for a period of 3 years, so that you learn the trade. Thereafter, you will make a formal application to the board, because that's one of our mandates, to license. And upon receipt, there is a checklist that you have to satisfy. That is to say, you must be recommended by a magistrate, you must be recommended by an advocate who is not less than 10 years standing. More importantly, you must be recommended by the auctioneer you've been working under. And that is where the responsibility kicks in terms of authenticating who is this we are admitting onto the auctioneering trade. And just to firm up our position, the board has come up with certain measures to firm up this position. Once you satisfy us with the application, we then subject you to interviews, both written and oral. We test you on matters auctioneering, okay? So that there is strict adherence once we admit you to the law, as it were. Once you pass your written interview, then we call you for an oral interview to touch base with who is this we are talking about. And we field questions, general questions, to see who is this Kenyan. Then thereafter, we also do background checks. If you say you're a graduate of XYZ University, for example, or college, we do write where we think that it is necessary for us to get further information. We write to the said institution to share with us information about the said candidate in terms of did they attend the said institution and what are their qualifications. We also call upon the examination council to assist in giving us background information in terms of the secondary education and the other exams that you may have undertaken.
Would it be wrong to assume then that any auctioneer who is operating in the Republic then is or has passed through this process in order for them to operate?
Yes, the auctioneering business is an old trade, as it were. And until legislation was put in place, there was a bit of confusion as to who is supposed to be licensed. And in fact, it's the provincial administration in those years which would then license auctioneers. It was an haphazard way of doing things. But with the enactment of the Auctioneers Act, it is now more clear as to how we bring on board the auctioneers into the trade.
Is it possible that today there are auctioneers who are operating in the country who have not passed through this process that you've elaborated on?
After the enactment of the Act, all auctioneers have gone through this process. Okay. The others who are slightly older, senior in the trade, were co-opted, and we agreed that there would be no need of subjecting them to that kind of... But that was long, long back. But right now, everybody who is an auctioneer in the last 10, 15 years has gone through this process.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you license individuals or do you license the business?
Now, that is very important, because then when liability kicks in, then you start asking questions such as these ones. To start with, the law says a license is to an auctioneer.
The person?
The person. Okay. If Latif comes and says, I want to be an auctioneer, we issue him with a license in his name.
Okay.
But there's a requirement that you have to have a trade name. That is to say, a regulative trading as so and so auctioneers. But liability
It's
attaches
to the individual.
to the individual. Just like Law Society of Kenya would issue a printing certificate to a particular lawyer or advocate for that matter. Anything goes wrong,
it's the individual
who takes
advocate.
personal responsibility.
So when we see, I'm going to give them a public mention because they've spent money on the Standard. So when you see, for example, Beeline Kenya auctioneers,
yes,
or Vintage auctioneers, Vintage is just a business name, a trading name.
Yes.
So how is it registered? Is it registered as?
When you apply to be an auctioneer, you must go to the registrar of trade names, business names. Sorry.
Okay.
The Sharia house. You lodge your business name. It goes through a search, and it has to be unique. You cannot share. It has to be unique. Once that happens, then once you have a notification from the registrar of trade names and business name, then you proceed to register your business with them.
Okay.
Then you bring us the certificate at the time of licensing, and we then license you using that trade name.
Can auctioneers form companies? Can it be a limited liability company, limited liability partnership?
Our legislation does not allow for that. Although we have seen various auctioneers holding individual licenses but working under one roof. Are you together?
So that business name, if it's registered, so is it a sole proprietorship?
Yes, it's a sole proprietorship, but you can...
or is it a partnership?
You can have some sort of partnership where under one trade name, XYZ auctioneers holding the individual licenses work under the same trade name.
Okay. Something I'd like you to explain to us. You said there were two categories of auctioneers.
Yes.
There's the guys at kindergarten where you're still being walked through the process.
Grade A.
Yes, you're walking, crawling, and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you're at that level, what are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do?
Thank you very much. That's very critical because at the start, when you're Class A, you can only carry out certain businesses. For example, you cannot be allowed to execute court orders as at Class A. Yes.
But I thought that's the business of auctioneers.
Yes, because
there's also the business of just threatening.
Because
so you are not allowed to action court orders.
Yes, as Class A. You can only conduct certain businesses. But as Class B, then you're allowed to realize securities. Even Class A, you can realize securities. But
realize security means what exactly?
You can sell property.
Oh, okay.
You take a facility, you're not able to service the facility, so the bank comes calling, for example, or the financial institution, and therefore they realize those securities on behalf of the lender.
That they can do.
That they can do. But they cannot execute court warrants. In Class B, you can execute court orders.
Court warrant, Your Honor. What is a court warrant? At what point does an auctioneer come with a court warrant? And at what point does he come saying, landlord amesema utoke?
No, let me break it down. A court warrant is basically a process that has been undertaken judiciously, a matter that has been heard and determined, a judgment has been rendered, a decree has been generated, and now we are at the stage of execution. So on application by the decree holder, then a warrant of attachment is issued, mandating the auctioneer to go out there, look for the judgment debtors' movables, proclaim them, and at the appropriate time, cut them away with a view of auctioning them to recover the judgment debt. That is how a court warrant comes in. There's a situation where you have refused to pay my rent. We have issued you with notices. Please pay up.
As per the lease.
You have refused. Or probably your situation in life has put you in that position. Then the landlord will issue instructions to an auctioneer to carry out distress for rent. In distress for rent, you do not need to go to court as such. He will give you a letter of instruction as an auctioneer. XYZ has refused or has failed, for example, to pay up. Kindly proceed and distress for rent. What would happen is that the auctioneer, upon receipt of the instruction letter, would then register it in the necessary registers and move to the location where the property or where the tenant resides. The landlord would have to point out this is a particular house. Then they'll proceed to give a notice. If they don't pay up, then a proclamation will issue where your household goods will be,
carted away.
No. Proclaimed.
They itemize it.
Yes, and give the estimated value of those properties.
Which means that they have to force their way into the house.
No, we have not reached there.
Okay. How are they itemizing things that are inside?
Wait, you're letting them come in and itemize.
No, you see,
Pole.
Trend pole.
Yes.
If there are times when tenants cooperate and you're able to carry out the proclamation.
Okay.
Sometimes the situation can be hostile. The ground is hostile.
Yeah.
Here I have economic hardship, and this auctioneer has landed here. Then they tend to be hostile. In which case, then, the auctioneer has an option, that is to move to court and seek court assistance by saying, allow me to get police assistance to take me to the particular premises for the purposes of carrying out my mandate.
And in such a case, will they then be allowed by law to use force or to get into your premise without your consent?
Again, another catch 22 situation breaks in. You have done the proclamation, yes, but now maybe the tenant in his...
The ground is still hostile.
It's very hostile. He locks up and takes off. You're not able to access the premises.
What do you do?
Again, you go back to court in a miscellaneous application, seeking breaking orders.
As auctioneer or as landlord?
As auctioneer,
okay.
Because you are the officer of the court,
okay,
as it were. So you have to go back to court, get what we call breaking in orders, and in the breaking in orders, again, the police have to be present. So that even as you break, they have to be very careful on how you handle the properties. You have to take an inventory of what you've carted away. And you have to then carry out the other processes thereafter in terms of advertisement and sale. This inventory has to be signed even by the police so that we authenticate that we were there and we oversaw by keeping peace so that this process, which is a legal process, can be undertaken. So everything is well captured in the Act, and anybody who contravenes this then is subject to a disciplinary course before us.
Well, let's take a break. 27 minutes to 8. This is the Situation Room, and the situation this morning is on auctioneering. The auctioneering trade in Kenya. The Honorable Peter Gesora is the chairperson of the Auctioneers Licensing Board, operating legally to license, regulate, and also handle complaints on matters of auctioneering. He's here with us, and we are just about to serve him some Minute Maid because he does quite a lot of work. Your Honor, we have Minute Maid here. It's good for break time.
Oh, really?
Mine is Tropical Delight. Kuna watu wanakunywa juice yangu hapa nikiacha. Nikiangalia pande hii. There's nectar mango. Everybody needs a break. It's Apple, it's all about whenever you're, busy and you're thinking, I need to refresh, to recharge, to get some fresh flavor into my system, go for Minute Maid.
Thank you.
We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord. Thank you very much. I've earned another title today, this morning at SpiceFM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Heri, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Aina Moi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Aina Moi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do.
Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me. No, I don't work for you. You work for me.
Do you like that Freudian slip? Lovely, isn't it? Thank you very much.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, we're looking at sunny conditions at 16 in Nairobi, highs of 28 and lows of 15. It's partly sunny at 12 in Nakuru, highs of 29, and highs of 28 in a partly sunny Nyeri at 11. It's 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 26, and it'll go to highs of 32 in a sunny Mombasa at 26. 27 and cloudy in Malindi, highs of 31, and 19 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 31 as well. 32 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega at 17. Looking into Kampala, it's sunny at 20, highs of 29. 31 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam, and it's 15 and sunny in Johannesburg. It'll go to highs of 26. It's 26 and mostly clear in Lagos with highs of 33, and we'll see highs of 32 in a cloudy Kinshasa at 23. All right, the CBD is where it's genuinely packed this morning. We're also looking at that action coming off of Gong Road. That has started Naivasha Road, getting into Hurlingham, out towards Lavington, and that continues to be a mishmash of traffic. We're looking at James Gishero, busy as you're crossing over towards Waiaki Way, and then Red Hill Link Road not looking too bad, but that whole area coming out from Limuru Road and through Ruaka has seen some problems this morning. Still seems to be pretty heavy. Folks are saying you want to use the northern bypass to get out of that. And then the eastern bypass is also an option for you. That whole Two Rivers area, Limuru Road, crazy. Let's look a little bit more west and coming in then from Nakuru through to Kikope Gilgil. There is a big issue there this morning. Traffic inbound to Nairobi is at a standstill. Still not sure what's causing that. If we're looking at Thika Superhighway, we've got traffic still on Kiambu Road as well as coming in through Survey. So it's traffic hour. In the middle of it, let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
8, we continue the conversation with the Honorable Peter Gesora, who is a chairman of the Auctioneers Licensing Board. You're talking about regulating and overseeing the auctioneering trade in the country. So you said that in addition to licensing, regulating and all, you also handle complaints. And so you're also a tribunal.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's a question by Alex Oviti who's actually saying, can auctioneers override the rent tribunal orders?
Thank you very much. Now, the sole mandate of the auctioneering board is to oversee the conduct of the auctioneers in the carrying out of their mandates. We are not there to usurp the powers of any other tribunal or court, as it were. Our mandate is well cut out, and we restrict ourselves to the mandate that is set out in Section 4 of the Act. Just to examine and come up with a decision whether the auctioneer misconducted himself or not. All the other orders issued by the other tribunals and courts are respected. In fact, I'll tell you for free that when we get wind or information in the board that there are parallel proceedings being undertaken in other courts or tribunals, sometimes we shy away from handling those complaints for the time being as we await for the outcome of the other processes that are being undertaken in other courts. For the simple reason, we are likely to fall in a situation where there are two conflicting decisions that come out of both the tribunal and the court. It may be the lower court or the high court, as it were, and it can be very embarrassing, for the judiciary, where everybody flashes their own order. Oh, me have an order from the tribunal, me have an order from the high court. So we try to shy away and give space to the other processes being undertaken in other courts to go to full throttle and to the end before we pick it up. Because you realize one thing. For example, a judge may make a holding in his judgment as regards the conduct of the particular auctioneer. Okay? And even order certain sanctions to be meted out to that particular auctioneer. Nothing stops them from doing that. And here you are, probably, you did not know, or you did not know the outcome of that decision, and you've given a contrary order. So we try as much as possible to do background checks, and where information comes through that there are parallel proceedings, then we put on hold our proceedings to await the outcome of the other proceedings.
So, if we look at a practical situation whereby an individual then is approached by an auctioneer because they've been given orders by, whomever, how does this individual then ascertain that this auctioneer who is coming to them actually is able to act under the orders that they are presenting? What questions ought you to ask before somebody comes and, breaks down your door or whatever? What questions ought you to ask? What should you ask for to be presented to you to confirm that this individual can actually do what they're saying they would?
That they're indeed an auctioneer, even.
In the first place.
Not just some thug.
How do I know that it's not some guy who knows that, okay, because the whole world is afraid when they hear the word auctioneer, that once you present them with something, you're likely to believe what it is that they're saying. How do you ascertain that this individual is in their capacity to act and then do what they're saying they should? And can you refuse that until you get the assurance?
Thank you. A very valid question. And one of the requirements for you to be an auctioneer here is that you have to have an office which is traceable, a physical address where we can trace you. That's number one. Number two, when you arrive in this office, you must demand to be shown, for example, his practice certificate or license for that particular year.
Okay.
To ascertain that truly is licensed for that particular year. Thirdly, you can come to our offices or write to us through email or just walk in and ascertain. Don't forget, we are the custodian of each auctioneer's personal file.
But you honor the fellas at the door right now. The fellas at the door,
bulky, mean-looking human
I'm not
being.
going to be sending an email when he, So I mean, how do you ascertain all of this?
Every auctioneer has a badge issued by the board.
Okay.
This badge is usually signed by the CEO of the board, and it has particulars of that particular auctioneer. And therefore, by the time they come to cut away your goods, it's a long process. It's not a one-day job. They have to come, tell you, first of all, pay up.
Okay.
Secondly, if you fail to pay up, then they come and proclaim your goods. Up to that point, they have not taken away your goods. And therefore, it gives you room
Okay.
to do background checks, even on your own, and be able to ascertain whether this fellow is duly licensed
Okay.
to carry out the auctioneering business. So it's not a touch and go situation. It takes a bit of time. In fact, not less than 14 days for that kind of action to be undertaken.
Now, these 14 days, I have to ask.
Yes.
14 working days? Well, say
14
14
calendar
because, I mean,
days.
one sees it in law. You're given 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. How do you count these days?
Days is a day.
Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, day.
A day, 14 days.
You know, that is clear now.
That's very clear. It's important. Public holiday, no, day.
No.
Yeah.
Public holiday, and there is a time between 21st December to 13th January of every particular year where time stops to run. Time stops to run. Statutorily, by the way. And therefore,
Which days are those?
from 21st December of each year
To
to
13th
13th January of the following year, time stops to run.
Meaning what? They cannot operate
If you have 7 days and they begin on the 20th,
of December.
Time stops to run.
Day two.
Day two is 14th
Yes,
of January.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And that is provided for in law and statute, and even judicial judges go on vacation during that period.
Does it also apply to other services like water and electricity?
No. Even for us as judicial officers, we continue working.
You go to a hotel, you book for 2 nights.
Even us as judicial
Night 1
officers.
is 20th. Night 2 is 14th.
In the meantime,
Yeah, so that is a position. It's not a touch and go situation.
Okay.
And Kenyans should be comforted that you will have sufficient time to
Yeah.
be able to then sort out yourself in doing background checks.
for the first time ever, I think we're hearing, and because look, nobody can run away from the fact or the overbearing emotion when you hear what people have gone through when it comes to auctioneers, whether it is the fear alone of just hearing the word. How then, because then what I hear you saying is that you're trying to then disabuse these auctioneers from this fear that people feel when they hear it. But I mean, it's not a nice thing to hear that somebody wants to come and cut your things away. But I hear you also then saying that at the same time, you should also know that this group of practitioners then will be guided by law. However, the overbearing thing is still fear. How do you then disabuse the process from the fear that people feel?
I think this is a notion that was created a long time ago and is still stuck with us. But I'll tell you for free, this situation has changed considerably. There are very many auctioneers who are very decent. They've gone to school, they have etiquette, and they conduct themselves with very serious and high decorum. And they're also human beings. And over time, through our trainings, we've been able to disabuse this kind of notion that these are people who are, thuggish, mean-looking. You will be shocked. So many, in fact, over 70% of our auctioneers, even the way they dress themselves, you will just be proud of them. Most of them appear before us. We meet them in seminars, and they're very decent and good, nice looking. And but more still needs to be done.
Sure.
More still to be done, because we are not saying we are not that we are out of the woods.
Okay. There's a question that's really direct now about a process. What if my husband owes and auctioneers come for items in my house which I have paid for? Are they allowed to touch what I have paid for and I'm not part of that debt?
Of course, there's a thin line there. And let's be very practical. There's a very thin line there. Here you are, you're a couple staying under one roof.
Well, you're staying under one roof, yes.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yes.
You've bought property or equipment, how then would an auctioneer know that this is Mrs. So-and-so's goods? It's for you to come up and say, for example, I'm not part of this debt.
Yes.
And this is my property. And there's proof that this is my property. So that then due process kicks in terms of not putting you into hardship, in terms of now cutting away your property.
So you can separate the two?
Of course, but as I say, it's usually a very thin line.
How do you prove that the fridge is not his, it's yours, or yours is not his? The receipt does not have your name, does it?
I have the transaction that came from mine. I mean, look, if people want to get to the nitty-gritty where they want to prove that, I think at the end of the day,
There could be collusion
don't
here
rope
between.
me into your thing.
There could be collusion as well in the couple.
Sure,
saying,
but
"Wewe
can
sema
you-
kila kitu wewe ndio ulinunua."
Right.
Yes. And again, if it's a court process that has been undertaken against Mr. XYZ, okay, judgment has been entered against him, and you feel that the goods that have been proclaimed belong to you, who is not involved in the dispute, there is nothing wrong in filing what we call objection proceedings.
Right.
That is provided on the civil procedure rules, where you now say, let's separate this thing. These goods that were proclaimed do not belong to the judgment debtor. And the courts will make a finding. In fact, the law says that once you file objection proceedings, you get an automatic stay. Automatic stay at the very outset.
Once you file an objection
Proceedings,
yeah.
you get an automatic stay at that stage. Without no further action can be taken against that property until it is sorted out as to who it belongs to.
Right.
Okay? So that, but we also know until 2010, before the rules were amended, that somebody would get then objection, that order, automatic stay, which is ex parte, and then go to slumberland, as it were. But now the rules on realizing this have now set up timelines within which you prosecute those proceedings, those objection proceedings, so that you also don't put the decree holder to hardship in terms of realizing the fruits
Waiting
of
for
the
their
judgment.
justice.
Yes. So that is sorted out.
So I'm going to ask this question in a long roundabout way, but there are several questions maybe in one. Number one, you have licensed the individual auctioneer, and the auctioneer, as you expect for him to be coaching future auctioneers, he'll employ people who'll work under him. Are there minimum qualifications or minimum standards of those people who work under him? Because we see auctioneers coming with thugs, people we call thugs. So, jumping on to the next side, we see in the news cases where auctioneers have descended on a property. This property, there's been dispute over ownership of this property. Maybe the judgment has gone a certain way, and on a certain day, auctioneers have descended on this property with their thugs, and they've come to destroy. Basically, they have thrown somebody's goods out, and they have brought down walls and roof property. These are complaints I'm sure that you've heard in your tribunal. What is it that goes amiss there? What parts of regulations have you allowed, and what is disallowed?
Thank you very much, Eric. This is a very touchy issue to the public and even investors, as it were. And some of them are shying away from coming to a jurisdiction because they do not know what's going to happen to them next. As earlier indicated, a license is to an auctioneer. That's number one. It's a rule of the thumb. You take personal responsibility for the actions that you're going to undertake. There are no real qualifications set out in the Act as to who you employ. But you realize that when people are undertaking some of these activities, they would hire a few people from the wood, on a temporary basis to then carry out those instructions. But the final responsibility rests on the auctioneer to be able to guide as to what is to be done and what is not to be done, because he will take personal responsibility for that. Secondly, matters demolition and eviction are very touchy now. Of late, we've had a few incidences which have left a bitter taste in everybody's mouth, including myself as chair. Let me tell you one thing. The law is very clear that if you want to get an eviction order, you must file a suit, a proper suit in court, which suit shall be subject to a full hearing, whether the defendant enters appearance or not. Underline that. For one reason or another, the defendant may have omitted and or probably just neglected to file a defense. But nevertheless, that matter must still go for full hearing, where evidence is adduced, viva voce evidence, so that a finding is made, a formal finding by way of judgment is made by the judge or the judicial officer in that respect. It is as a result of that that you now proceed to the next level, where the judge will say, eviction orders to issue as per whatever I'm seeing here.
Okay.
But even then, the courts have been very cautious, and the High Court has guided us in a myriad of determination that you don't issue a judgment today and tomorrow I'm evicting you. Say, for example, in a rural setup where you are evicting somebody from a piece of land, but he had planted crops for that season.
Right.
Do you just unleash what you have called those people to just go into the land, slash down all the crop, and evict, as it were? Courts have been sympathetic, and we have given timelines within which the eviction is to be carried out. We have given notices, sufficient time to the JD, the judgment debtor, to be put on notice that, look, there's a judgment against you. You need to move out of this land or house, and failure which you have been given probably 90 days, 6 months, as it were, depending on the discretion of the judicial officer or the judge. And we are now coming for you. So we are not caught in a crossfire. You're not caught by surprise that a judgment was passed, and then now people have come the following day to evict me. You might as well find yourself that service was not effected on you of that summons for that suit. And therefore it will put you in a disadvantageous position if somebody is to come, yet you are not in the know as to what exactly transpired. So that gives you a chance to even go back to court and say, look, no, the eviction orders given are ex parte erroneous, because I was never served with summons to enter appearance. I think my rights will be prejudiced if this eviction is allowed to continue.
Yeah.
Secondly, once that eviction order is issued, eviction does not amount to demolition. You know, that's one aspect where we get it wrong. So that we've had very bizarre situations. Very bizarre. Where, for example, an auctioneer goes on a Thursday afternoon to a court with a miscellaneous application. It looks very innocent on the face of it.
Yeah.
Very, very innocent. Says, okay, help me. I want to levy distress. That is a Thursday. It's a typical example I'm just giving you so that you see where Kenyans are coming from. Innocently, the judicial officer say, oh, you want to carry out distress? Oh, he peruses through the instruction letter and issues that order, that police assist.
Yep.
Okay? That is on a Thursday. On Friday afternoon, the drama starts.
Yeah.
The said auctioneer lands in the locus and unleashes terror. It's a Friday afternoon. And he ends up, instead of distress, ends up actually evicting and demolishing the house.
The house.
Now, these are acts which are criminal in nature. They are criminal nature, and Kenyans need to be in the know that the other relevant agencies must kick in and arrest this situation. Of course, we have seen situations where police officers are allocated to this auctioneer. They go on site. Another group comes. Maybe now the tenant has gone to another police station
with their own officers.
And then another batch comes, and all of a sudden, as it happened recently, the new group of officers, probably a phone call comes from somewhere, and they step down.
And they clash.
And they even don't clash. They go away.
Honorable Gesora, I am sorry I have to cut you short. Well, we've gotten the point. But you have to come back and now tell us about, all the other disputes that you deal with in your tribunal. The Honorable Peter Gesora is the chairperson of the Auctioneers Licensing Board. We've been tackling emerging issues in the auctioneering trade. It's 8 a.m. Time for the news.
To have UK visas processed following new adjustments on visa processing duration announced by United Kingdom High Commissioner to Kenya, Jude Marriott. This means that Kenyans applying for visas to visit the UK for a holiday or to see family or friends, business trip or meeting, to get married or to study for 6 months or less will no longer have to wait for 6 weeks to know whether their visas have been approved or denied. High Commissioner Marriott, who issued the statement, said 3 weeks waiting duration also includes persons applying for a visa to travel through the UK on their way to another country. The Judiciary and the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime have agreed to focus on programs that lay emphasis on the poor and vulnerable in the Kenyan society. Speaking during a meeting with UNODC delegations that was led by the organization's Deputy Director, Division of Operations, Bo Matheson, Chief Justice Martha Koome said that 2 institutions have mounted the transformative program for legal empowerment and aid delivery, which enters its second phase from March this year. The Chief Justice said the program will support ongoing initiatives and new ones on administering justice responsibly and innovatively, reaching the most vulnerable in Kenyan society, which is in line with the social transformation access through to justice of the judiciary. The Council of Governors and the Ministry of Health have agreed to come up with a joint team which will be tasked with assessing the status of functionality of the managed equipment services equipment in various facilities. The decision was arrived at following a meeting between the Council of Governors Chair Ad Hoc Committee on Managed Equipment Services, chaired by COG Chair Health Committee Muthomi Njuki, Health Principal Secretary Peter Toom and other health officials at COG offices. The meeting agreed that the team be constituted within 10 days and come up with a report that will inform both levels of government's decision on the MES program. Now, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union Nyanza branch have threatened that its members will resort to industrial action if a proposal by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to scrap their non-practice allowance is adopted. KMPDU Nyanza Branch Secretary General Dr. Agri Orwenyo likened the proposal as a dare by the government medics to down their tools. Orwenyo added that the proposal was a mere ploy by the government to put medics at a disadvantage ahead of the looming negotiations for the 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement. And a former diplomat at the Venezuelan embassy in Kenya, Dwight Sagare, and 3 others have been found guilty of the murder of Venezuelan ambassador to Kenya, Olga Fonseca, in 2012. Justice Rosalind Correa acquitted the 5th accused person, Kingano Chelogoi, for lack of sufficient evidence linking him to his co-accused person and at the scene of crime. Former First Secretary at the Venezuelan Embassy, Dwight Sagare, Ahmed Mutiven Omindo, Alex Sifuna Wanyonyi and Moses Kiprotich Kalia were found guilty of planning and executing the murder of the former Venezuelan ambassador to Kenya, who was found strangled in our official residence in a Runda area of Nairobi in July 2012. 5 accused persons have been arraigned in the 10-year-old case, but one has been acquitted as the prosecution did not prove his involvement in the planned murder. And a family in Boliro village in Butula, Busia County is in agony over their daughter's disappearance. 17-year-old Tendi Amin Kasale, Form 4 student at St. Mary's Girls High School in Mumias, went missing on the 5th of this month after she left her parents' home for medication at a nearby clinic. She was last seen on the 7th of January at the Busia bus terminus, with reports indicating that she boarded a Nairobi-bound bus. Police at Butula police station, where the matter was reported, are tracing the girl's movement from her Boliro home to Nambale all the way to Busia using a boda. Her phone, which has been on and off, has been traced to Rabai area of Kiambu County. The family and police are now calling on members of the public to alert the nearest police station if the minor is spotted. Tendi Amin Kasala, if you're listening, your parents are looking for you. Now, Tanzanian opposition stalwart Tundu Lissu arrived back in the homeland to a rousing welcome from supporters after spending most of the past 5 years in exile following an assassination attempt. The one-time presidential candidate was greeted by supporters in the red, white and blue colors of his Chadema party. Lissu, who was shot 16 times in 2017 and has spent most of the years since in Belgium, arrived on a flight from Brussels via Addis Ababa. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Traffic on Jogo Road continues, and we're looking at it coming in from Gong Road towards Naivasha Road and also into that whole Hurlingham area. What else are we looking at? Traffic on the Thika Superhighway as well as Kiambu Road. This whole thing looks like it's going to be there for some time now that schools have opened. Quite busy there. Mombasa Road doesn't look too bad. How about that for Model Road this morning? So stuff happening outside of the city today. That whole Nakuru coming into Gilgil, Kikope area, that still continues to be an issue right now. It's moving very slowly. Folks who are trying to get into Nairobi. Okay, the northern bypass is looking good as an option for you to get in and out of the city, as is the eastern and southern. Think about using those. Then let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8, and this is the Situation Room, getting into the third hour. Honorable Gisare has told us the email address and how to get in touch with the Auctioneers Licensing Board, which is Auctioneers Licensing Board at yahoo.com.
Yes.
Or you can go to their office, Reinsurance Plaza on Taifa Road, 4th floor. Go to 4th floor on Reinsurance Plaza. Very many questions coming in on auctioneers and how the auctioneers conduct their business. And he's agreed to come back on one day where it'll just be an open mic session. Or we open the phone lines, people ask him questions. For example, there's somebody who's saying he'd like some help. He took someone to court. The person owes them 100,000 shillings. They have not paid. Can the auctioneers
come and help him?
I think you just need to look for your for an auctioneer who's a licensed
and see what they can do for you.
Yeah, because the Auctioneers Licensing Board doesn't actually do the auctioneering business. They are a regulator and the ones who license. Now, we've been talking about Elma Apartments off Thika Superhighway, just 3 kilometers on Mweki Road, a development by Centum Real Estate. Are you ready to own a piece of, a home? All you need is a deposit of 250,000 shillings. Pay the rest in flexible installments, or you can finance through your SACCO or your bank. This is real. Text the word ELMER, E-L-M-E-R, to 22365. That is 22365. the word Elma to 22365. You got a message immediately from them telling you, thank you for getting in touch with us. Let us know how we can help you. They'll give you all the information about this. They'll send you the floor plans. They'll tell you the exact location. They'll even send you renders and photos of the development, renders of how it should look like, the photos of the current status of development, the latest photos, because some blocks are already complete. These apartments will have then 3 blocks, if I remember correctly, and one of them has a top floor which is usable for entertainment. What do you do with it? You have a decent rooftop for you to relax. It has a mini soccer pitch. It has a tennis court up there. There'll be some restaurant up there as well. It has ample parking. There's treated water, power backup, a green courtyard on the floor, on the ground floor, and also I said parking and some greenery, right? This is all on Mwiki Road in Kasarani. Development by Centum Real Estate. We are going to have another guest joining us in the studio, who is, the man is Saitaba Olekanchori. He's an advocate of the High Court, and he'll be here to talk to us about the Azimio and the game plan that Azimio has or should have. Siti,
Yes,
in
please.
the meantime, give us the day's proverb.
I will. We're still in the country of Angola. Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree.
Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree.
Yes.
Every nut is important.
Indeed.
Yes.
This one is from Angola. What's your interpretation of it, Ndu?
Small beginnings, isn't it? You can be seen as insignificant, but at some point, you could go through the process and become something that is revered by many.
So when they sang for waliokudharau siku moja watakusalimia kwa heshima, when you become a palm tree.
I mean, just think of nature and how it is what we see as a forest begins with just one.
Indeed.
Yes.
I think of the palm fruit, not the coconut, but I think of the palm fruit that makes palm oil and all of these other things. It's this size. But the tree is huge.
How big is it?
This size, the palm fruit that gives you palm oil. It's this size.
For real?
Yes, yes. It's a red fruit. It's this size.
Huh?
Yeah, the fruit that from which you extract palm oil is that size.
You have to think of coconut because
You're thinking of coconut.
So are they? Do they look the same as coconut trees, or is it the same tree?
It's not the same tree. It's a different kind of tree, but
so
they're
a palm
the same
tree
family.
and a coconut tree are different.
different.
And you look at them, can you tell
Palm
the difference?
fruit tree is even different from a palm tree, which is different from a coconut palm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
All
just say
palms,
okay.
But they're different. There's
all
palm
palms
fruit,
are not
there's
palms.
coconut. All palms are not palms. Right.
Okay.
So that proverb, I mean,
So you think of that palm fruit.
if you look at the fruit on the floor of the farm, it's insignificant. But then when you look at what it could come out to be, that glorious palm tree, the significance of the palm fruit is seen in the tree.
In fact, if you want to give it political meaning, look at the Arab Spring situation and the stories around it.
Yeah.
How that momentous, that all-encompassing, that all-enveloping mass of activities began.
One tweet.
One.
It's about small beginnings.
Yes. And what they can grow to become. And the significance that becoming then has. Yes. As they say, many great things begin with an idea. And now that idea is the nut. Or the equivalent of the nut.
And then it becomes a big thing.
This becomes a massive thing, yes.
All right. Ndu,
Yes.
please tell us that big story again. The game plan by the Azimio leader.
Raila's game plan is graduated, all right? And let's start off with what he said. He is plotting what has been said, he's plotting a gradual escalation of resistance against President William Ruto, which could ultimately snowball into a call for civil disobedience and mass action. This, even as he made fresh revelations into how his alleged 2022 poll victory was stolen. So, here's the plan. Number 1, nationwide rallies. Apart from Nairobi, meetings on electoral justice set for other towns. That doesn't work. Number 2, tax resistance. Rally supporters to shun punitive taxes. You may decide for yourself what punitive taxes are. Number 3, should that not work, product boycott. Ask supporters to shun enterprises associated with the ruling coalition leaders.
Okay.
So we will not buy your stuff.
Okay.
We will essentially finish you.
So he'll give a list and say,
These are the ones you should not buy.
just like we saw in 2017. Okay.
Okay. Number 4, if all of this does not work, we will rally the international community and say, excuse me, you must step in here because what's happening here is really contravening so many things at the same time. They will lobby intervention of foreign powers on independent poll audit. First of all, tell us, you bring in your international expertise and lean in on the influence that you have for them to open this thing and tell us exactly what happened. And finally, should all of this not work, whether in chronology or at the same time, mass action, last resort is to force the government to yield to the demands. And the demands are what? Open the server, get a poll audit, declare the real winner the winner.
Where?
And I'll end this with a quote that he said, the real results, this is now Azimio leader Raila Odinga, the real results were out by August 10th, 2022 in the morning, but they refused to announce the results because they knew there was a problem.
This new push and argument is based primarily on the alleged whistleblower and what the whistleblower has said. Whistleblower claiming that they work for the IEBC and there's a game that was played in the IEBC and the results were doctored by the other officers of the IEBC, and so what was announced was not the actual outcome of that election. Now, this game plan, I can see everything else. I can see, okay, just say you as a normal human being, you can choose what to buy and what not to buy. You can choose to buy this and not the other. I can also see you as a normal human being, you have a right to picket and all those things. The one I'm not getting is the taxes bit. Please repeat that. He says,
we are saying there's tax resistance. Rally supporters to shun punitive taxes.
What does shun punitive taxes mean?
What does shun mean? We will not pay.
Ignore.
So basically say, you are not going to pay taxes.
Yes.
All right.
No. Not you're not going to pay taxes. It's specific. Punitive.
Punitive ones.
See, I asked the question, which tax
is not punitive?
Yes. See, because now...
So the expectation here is that he's going to give a list of what we consider as punitive tax.
Well, one can only hope because, you see, depending on who is paying the tax, you may think this is a normal tax and it's easy to understand. So it may be considered punitive given the circumstances. So again, that clarity that you've just mentioned, one can only assume it will be given and say, this particular tax that you pay for fuel, this one is punitive.
So if he says VAT is punitive, you don't pay VAT.
Well, if you see, the thing is, you're not going to be forced not to pay, but the option has been given if you want to join the resistance.
All right, so how do you not pay VAT, for example, if you're buying fuel?
Might be a tad difficult.
These guys tell you, Mafuta ni 176.
You say, I'm paying
176. You say, I'm
paying 120.
These now are the brass
tacks
that one has to deal with when you're talking about these things, because when you have something as compact and comprehensive as fuel, everything is in there. So the only option is not to fuel you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
now. You fuel your
that's
car.
the only option.
You will walk or ride a bicycle.
Or if you want to complain about, say, unga, the only thing is not to eat ugali. Okay?
Eat cake.
Eat cake. Our guest has arrived in the studio. Saitaba Ole Kanchori is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and he was the chief agent in the presidential election for the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition candidate. Saitaba, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, listeners and viewers. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Now, let's start from the beginning. There's a new some new information that's coming from an alleged whistleblower who says that there were games that were played in the August 9th presidential election. Have you seen that information?
Well, of course, I've seen the information, Eric, and I want to tell the country that now they know the truth. That is the information that has been produced by the candidate, the Azimio candidate, Baba, is what reflects the will of the Kenyan people.
Okay.
Yes.
This whistleblower, do you know the identity of the whistleblower?
Well, the identity of the whistleblower is an IEBC insider. But he has, of course, for his own safety, his identity cannot be disclosed.
Do you know?
I do not want to confirm or deny whether I know his identity.
How have you verified that whatever this person is saying is true?
The information that has been given is verifiable in its own content. Verifiability of the information lies in the information itself. Baba has explained how from that information you can see where the forms were generated. You can see the people who generated the forms. So the information itself is self-evident. And you've not even heard anybody disputing. The other side have not come out to dispute that these are actually the actual results. And they are the actual results. The question then, really, because we cannot be talking about the actual results 5 months down the line. For me, as a man of action and as a practical person, I would be saying and I would be asking, so what next? And I think that is what is important. We have crossed there's a lot of water under the bridge insofar as the results are concerned. Yes, I know that the results that Baba has now produced are the credible electoral results for the election, for the presidential election of 2022.
Saitaba, is it Baba who has produced the results, or is it this alleged whistleblower, or are they one and the same?
Baba is the one who has now come with the results, because the whistleblower cannot come out to say these are the results. So the results from the person who has brought them to the Kenyan public is, of course, now the Azimio side. And we are saying, if you want to dispute these results, show us, how is it possible that we can show you that this is the proper form for this polling station in Gatundu? And Baba has said, and I support him fully, that we need an audit of the IEBC systems. We need a proper interrogation. There are things that we like to scatter around as a country. In the last presidential election, the Supreme Court did this country an extremely serious disservice. The Supreme Court did a cosmetic scrutiny, and it glossed over matters, even when IEBC refused to open the server, which it did. And there was a letter from Venezuela or wherever it was, where they were saying they cannot open the server for security reasons. The court accepted and even just said the explanation. Whatever IBC was saying, the court was willing to the court became an apologist for IBC and all the grave malpractices that even the court itself accepted they committed. It became an apologist.
Yeah, sure. Look, we know he who alleges proves, isn't it?
Yes.
And here we are saying that the server, there's a whistleblower and an IEBC insider who has said 1, 2, 3, and that's information that we are now giving to the public. Azimio is giving that information to the public. How does do we just pick it up and say, actually, you know what? Because they've said it, then it must be true. What is the recourse? And I'm not talking about this action plan, which we'll get into. What is the recourse? how do you then say, actually, you know what, folks, this is serious enough for it to be pushed to another level to find out if this is actually the thing? Because obviously you've already said whistleblower will not hear from because this person fears for their life, right? How beyond that then do you convince people that this is actually something worth looking into?
Now, thank you. That's a good question, though. And, yes, he who alleges proves. But we have said, we have these forms. We have the results. We have the people who sign these results, and they are known on those forms. And that is the interrogation we are saying. We want to open up. Because this is not a matter, this country needs to get to a place where it actually settles these important issues without just running through matters, and always every 5 years we come back to the same problem. Every 5 years we keep coming back to the same mess. It is now for the other side. We have said we have the results for all these polling stations. We are willing to bring and compare them with the ones that they relied on. We are willing for the people who signed these results to be called in a public inquiry. Let the presiding officers, the returning officers from across this country, because they have not disappeared. They are not foreigners. They are still in Kenya. We have their names. Let them come and say which forms were the genuine forms. This is the conversation we need to have. This station is, you are esteemed for raising the bar in terms of the conversation. And this country is always trying to lower the bar in terms of real issues. So we need to get to a place where we say, what are the issues? Can we have them? Can we address them? We have the resources, we have the time to address important national issues. Let us not waste our time on sideshows as a country. We have a country to build and a nation to build. So we cannot, engage in, and that is why even when you saw my tweet, I will call anyone out who is not clear on where we are going. Whether it is the other side, or whether it's our side. Some of us are interested in this country moving forward. Yeah.
So you did tweet. You did say that you were looking for Raila Odinga to give a clear way. It would appear that today he's given a clear way.
Is it clear?
Is this what you wanted?
Well, he's making it a little more clearer, but some of us like clarity in everything. Raila Odinga is not Eric, he is not City, he is not Kasai Tabao, he is not Ndu. Raila Odinga is Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga carries the hopes and aspirations of what I would estimate to be over 35 million Kenyans. In my own estimation, and I don't think I'm far from the truth.
Okay.
He carries the aspirations and the hopes of this nation. And therefore, when he says whatever he has to say, when he gives direction, that direction must be clear. Okay. When he takes a position, that position must be well-informed and well-grounded. And for some of us who are his supporters, it is, and I don't know if Baba has a bigger supporter than me. It will be remembered that I put my life on the line to defend these results that, City and everybody else. Eric, one of the reasons I'm a bit annoyed is because 2 months to the election, I was shouting myself hoarse, telling everybody, including Baba, the elections are going to be stolen. 2 months to the election, 2 days to the election, I was shouting myself hoarse, saying the elections are being stolen. And after the election, I was left alone to defend it. So now 5 months down the line is when everybody is seeing the light of day, what I was trying to say. So that is part of the reason that I will not engage in things that are not clear. And I will not engage in, activities that are not, we have to have a clear end game and we have to have a clear ball game. What is the end game? What is the game plan? Where are we going? If Baba has a plan and he tells us, these things are good that he has said, resistance and all this, but he has to tell us how to do it. Because like I said, He is Baba. He is our father. And he's the one that this country, the majority of us, are looking up to. And when he says that we should not pay punitive taxes, he needs to tell us how to avoid paying these punitive taxes. Nobody wants to pay punitive taxes. So his team and his strategy team, if indeed there is one, he needs to tell us how they want us to do this.
I don't know why you're removing yourself from that team. Saitabao, Baba and the Azimio Council chose you to be the chief agent of the presidential candidate.
Yes.
Just 5 months ago.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
That means, in a matter of this election, you're one of his chief advisors. The dispute that Baba is raising is about the election. One of his chief advisors is talking about other advisors. Who are these other advisors if Saitaba Ole Kanchori is not one of the advisors?
Eric, let me tell you, the reason that Baba chose me to be his chief agent and the reason that he put me in his presidential board is because Baba came to see from our interactions that many times I was the only person, possibly the only person in the room who will tell him the truth. That is why Baba said, okay, you do it. The only problem I have is that with time, my voice of reason was overruled
by
the other, better placed advisors. And that is why we are in this mess. So I am, you see, even as Baba is giving us direction.
Were you reporting to the other advisors? Or
No, I was reporting to Baba.
Did he overrule your advice?
He did not listen to me. If he listened to me, he would be in State House today. I can tell you for sure. If Baba listened to me, he will be in State House right now as we speak. And he knows that. Baba knows that. And that is why you will not hear Baba coming out to, he knows. We have had deep interactions that he knows. And he knows I was right on 99.9% of the things that I told him.
Okay.
Including now these results that
Did these other advisors deny you access to Raila Odinga?
They misled.
Did they deny you the direct access that you had?
They limited access. They limited my access to the candidate.
Okay.
But that was okay. I didn't have a problem with that limitation because all I needed to do is to ensure that the candidate knew my position, which I always did. I never once kept quiet. And I'm writing a book, and that book is, I have written, I think the first person who needs to read that book is Baba. Because I have dedicated 3 chapters about him. And I think he will cry when he reads that book.
It'll be
Because Baba needs to come back to being Baba. He needs to come back to being the Raila Odinga that really he is. I am saddened sometimes, Eric, I'm saddened when I see Baba now reducing himself to be a defender of a failed regime and a failed, system. Baba needs to choose, really, clearly. You cannot be Uhuru Kenyatta's defender and be the defender of the people of Kenya. So those are some of the things that we are saying. Some of us, and Baba is our Mandela. Baba is Kenya's Mandela. If Mandela was not as focused as he was, South Africa will still be under apartheid rule today. And therefore, some of us are trying to redirect Baba to go back to being the person that we know he's capable of being. Okay? And as Baba is checking these other fellows, some of us are going to check Baba.
So you're checking Baba?
Yes.
Let's take a break. It's 28 minutes to 9. Saitaba Ole Kanchori, who was Raila Odinga's chief agent in the just concluded general election, is here with us in the studio. So which way forward for Azimio la Umoja candidate? Raila Odinga has said, well, we are heading this particular route, and Saitaba is saying we need proper clarity on what happens. Ndu, please tell him about Minute Maid, because he needs to take a minute. Chaitabo is just getting his mori up.
Take a Minute Maid break. Look at any of those flavors. Nectar, mango, perhaps is your thing.
You've not given me any Minute Maid.
Don't worry. That's what we're telling you now. Minute Maid apple and also the tropical. Take that Minute Maid break and exhale before you take on more.
Indeed. So this is what Raila Odinga has been saying about this election.
Niona kama juzi Ruto nasema kule kwa mazishi ati Chebukati alifungua 7 kitambo. Uliza siku gani? Alifungua 7 siku gani? Katika mahakama mliona wakili zetu Mheshimiwa Murgor akishout kusema we have not been given access to the servers. Akiambia wale majudges. Alafu hiyo kampuni inaitwa Smartmatic aliandika barua ya kusema ati we cannot allow access to the servers because doing so will infringe on our proprietary rights.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself. When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom? I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because
major. Sunny at 19 in Nairobi, we'll see highs of 28 and 30 will be the high in Nakuru. It's sunny at 16 and 15 and sunny conditions in Nyeri, highs of 28, and we'll go to highs of 26 in a sunny Eldoret at 17. Mostly sunny at 28 in Mombasa, and we're looking at sunny conditions at 27. In Malindi, it's sunny at 21 in Kisumu. It'll go to highs of 31, and we'll see highs of 32 in a sunny Kakamega at 19. Mostly sunny conditions in Kampala at 22, and it's 28 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. Looking at 17 and sunny in Johannesburg, going to highs of 26, and Lagos will be mostly clear this morning, going to highs of 33 through Thursday. 23 and cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 32, back down to lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
All right. Heavy coming off of Wayaki Way, and it's spilling over towards into Lower Kabete. That whole Spring Valley area still is quite messy. As you're coming off Wayaki Way, going out towards Chiromo, that also continues, and Ring Road Western's busy as well. Traffic coming off of the Thika Superhighway still continues as it does on Kiambu Road this morning. The Northern Bypass been given good escape routes to folks this morning. So has the Southern Bypass and the Eastern Bypass. That Ruaka situation is continuing. Not quite sure what caused that, but we're still looking at traffic heavy in that area. All right, let us know through the morning what's going on where you are. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
23 minutes 9. Chief agent of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya
Former
coalition.
chief agent.
Former
chief agent.
Elisha.
See,
we're still talking about that election.
Amen.
The election is over.
But he's still talking about that election. And we're
Yes,
still
we
talking
are,
about the
but
results.
he was the chief agent for the election.
For the former candidate.
Yes. Yes.
Sawa. Former chief agent for the former presidential candidate in the former election
Correct.
of 2022.
Correct.
Sawa. And you're saying you need clarity now from your leadership.
Yeah, what I'm not getting, and I think I speak for many Kenyans, is what is Baba's end game. Okay. So, and I want to tell you, Ken, and Baba knows. Yeah.
Ken ni ule mwingine.
Sorry. Eric. Eric, I want to tell you.
Yes.
I want to tell you. If Baba knows, and that's why he chose me as his chief agent. He knows that I am one man who is like the rock of Gibraltar. I cannot be moved. I cannot be moved by fear. I cannot be moved by money. I cannot be moved by nothing. Even he cannot move me. I am unmovable. Immovable. And he knows it. And you don't become a national chief agent for Raila Odinga if you're not someone who has very serious qualities. And he knows it. And when I say, for me, I want to hear Baba say, this is what the end game is. And in my view, he has only two options. Yeah? Or we have two options as Azimio. Because I'm still deeply in Azimio. Okay? And I will remain there. But I want to see our plans succeeding. And that's why I'm saying I'm talking the way I'm talking.
So you see two options?
Two options.
Right.
The first option is for Baba to tell us whether he has a path to power. Because some of us supported him so that he can get the reins of power so that he can take this country in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay? So if he needs to tell us, and if he tells us this is the way and this is the path to power, if it is clear, I'll be the first one to follow him.
Okay.
And I will be the first one to take whatever bullet needs to be taken. Okay? Before even he takes it himself. Number two, he needs to tell us whether his path or whether his plan is to check this government.
Okay.
And if that is the case...
So it can be one or the other.
It cannot be both.
It's either I take over power from this government or I check
it.
Okay.
Okay? And there is no third option. The third option now is, those are the silly games I was talking about. If there is any other plan, those are silly plans.
Does the path to power include sharing power?
No.
No handshake?
No handshake, please. A handshake is, William Ruto has already offered Raila Odinga a handshake. He's talking about handshakes, and he's the one who has offered Raila Odinga a handshake in the form of leader of official opposition. This is William Ruto's version of the handshake with a clenched fist in his typical fashion. In his typical fashion, his handshake is always, it comes with a twist. So if Baba gets into another handshake, we are going to retire him very early, some of us.
Which of those two options?
Some of us will retire him very early.
Which of those two options is your preferred option?
I will participate in either, and as long as those two plans are effective. Because even if you want to check government, you have to have an effective plan. If you want to take over power, because that is your right also, and especially if you are saying it was taken from you fraudulently, it is your right to go for it. You know where I come from, If you take my cows, I will follow you.
Right.
And I will follow you until I get you. And when I get you, I will not negotiate with you.
Whether you're human or lion.
I will take the cows back by whatever means necessary. Okay? So Baba needs to be now clear in that regard. Some of us, we are not people of, perambulating. We like clarity. And if Baba wants to check this government, that is also a very serious job. And it is already a government that is crumbling and collapsing and failing. And it will continue to fail. So it requires an effective opposition to check it. In either of those two options, if you don't have a clear plan, you will be annihilated. You will be annihilated. William Ruto is not Uhuru Kenyatta. And he has told us as much.
Yeah.
William Ruto is not Mwai Kibaki. William Ruto is not Daniel Arap Moi. If you want to deal with William Ruto, you have to be these are people who are brutally efficient. And if you're not as brutally efficient and focused as they are, or better, you're wasting your time.
So it's about, I hear you saying, but not saying, that this game plan, which we're seeing then, is not clear.
Of course it's not.
It is not clear.
It's not clear, and it's not efficient.
It's not efficient either.
Yeah.
So, you're saying if you're not going to be, don't get into the water.
Yes.
Now, for somebody who you've clearly said Raila Odinga listens to, why wouldn't he listen to you if you've offered this sentiment to him?
I have offered. But by the time I come out, to talk about anything publicly, I have had a discussion with my principal, and a man I love and respect, almost to a fault. I always share with him some of these things, some of these, ideas and concerns. And so by the time I come out, I have exhausted that angle. Baba has one weakness, and it is the reason we are in this mess. Baba is very dismissive. And even though he listens to me, and somehow our relationship is very interesting because it's a father-son relationship. And he never dismisses me outrightly. He can dismiss other people. He can tell you, he can dismiss you if he doesn't like your idea. But he can tell you off. But me, he has never told me off. But he will not listen. He will just, okay. And then he will manage me. Instead of now me managing him, he will manage me. So that he tells me, it's okay, let's. So and at the end of the day, that's why we got into this mess. If Baba did not manage me, if he allowed me to manage him, he would be in State House.
Let me ask you this question. When you look at someone, the person of Raila Odinga, what he entails, and you look at his history, you see, the pronouncements that we are now discussing reminds me of a time back around 2005 when President Kibaki was the president, and an issue arose about two Armenians known as the Atur brothers.
Mamlukis.
Yes, and Raila pronounced certain things, and the dust it raised. Oh, do you know this? Oh, what about this? Oh, essentially, it was not believed.
Earlier.
Yes, it wasn't. A commission was then later to be set, the Kiruki Commission. And the Kiruki Commission had its say. A report was presented to the president. Now, from something that was lambasted to just hearsay, this guy's just talking, again, if I may use a common phrase now, hot air, it became something a commission was formed to actually investigate.
Yes.
And a report was actually given. Now, what am I saying?
And it was confirmed that Baba was right.
I think you've gotten where I'm going with this. There are times, for someone who has been involved in politics for a long time, they may not necessarily say everything they want to say or let it be known that this is what they are planning. But it doesn't mean that they do not know what they are doing, neither do they know the direction in which they are heading. That's point number one. Point number two, these handshakes, views differ on these matters in this country. But if I look at, again, the history of this country, starting from independence, Kanu Kadu, the reason why, or one of the reasons why we're where we are today as a country was we've had a continuum of handshakes where political people say, okay, fine, this is the position we took, but let's just do a little about turn and move along in this direction. We avert situations that ordinarily in other countries would have led to some serious conflict because of this idea of the handshake. Now, let me ask the question then. Do you think that the very process of what we call the handshake in whatever form is necessarily undesirable?
Very good question. And City, you're a very analytical man. And I don't think, your biodata is very correct about you. It's very correct. It is not. There's no exaggeration there. It's a good question. But I think there's nothing wrong with a handshake. There's nothing wrong with people working together. There's nothing wrong with cooperation in politics. The problem is usually what is the objective of that cooperation. Okay. Is it in the interest of the nation? Is it in the interest of the public? Or is it in other pedantic, and parochial interests? So the reason that this country has not moved forward is that ever since the first handshake, which was actually the handshake between Kanu and Kadu, it was not about the interest of the nation. Jomo Kenyatta was basically just trying to obliterate opposition. And that is why he ended up with a despotic regime, because there was no opposition. So that handshake failed us. The second handshake, which basically came in the form of cooperation between President Moi and Raila Odinga in 97, 98 or thereabout, the cooperation, New Kanu and so on. That was equally in my view, that handshake nearly worked, because that is a handshake that detonated the KANU juggernaut from within, and it gave us, 2002, the only election that I think was worth Kenyan's time. After that, we had 2007, which again was another disaster. The Grand Coalition government, of course, was a forced handshake under very unfortunate circumstances. So I think if we are to go, and of course the last one was a complete disaster. It is a handshake that served no purpose, in my view, other than to diminish the standing of Raila Odinga. And this handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta is, if you analyze the whole thing, if you are critical like CT, you will find that it was the weakest link in the whole Azimio setup. It is a handshake. The handshake stifled Raila Odinga, and it allowed the other side a lot of space on critical issues. Raila Odinga, because of the handshake, could not criticize Uhuru Kenyatta, even though Uhuru Kenyatta's government was clearly failing. High food prices, high cost of living, fuel shortages, all those things. The other side was given a feast day, because of the handshake. Some of us, and I want to tell you, and I know Baba knows that, I hope he hears this, because he knows. Some of us put our foot down and told him, it is time to disengage. Yes, Uhuru Kenyatta is your friend, is your brother, but you have to criticize the failings of his government. Because getting into bed with an unpopular regime so close to an election was always going to be costly. It did not cost us the election, but it was an unnecessary encumbrance. And at the end of the day, the only justification that could have been given for the handshake was if Uhuru Kenyatta's government could have been a guarantor to a credible electoral process as a sitting government, which it failed to do. So what did it serve us? It was a complete mess, a complete failure. And that is why I personally want to see Baba right now, liberate himself from the shackles and the yoke of Uhuru Kenyatta, because he continues to be a burden and a yoke that is unnecessary. If you are to take Kenyans forward and dealing with people like this, the people who are in power right now, you cannot afford to carry Uhuru Kenyatta on your back. You cannot.
So Raila has said, one, he doesn't recognize William Ruto's presidency. He doesn't recognize any officers who have been appointed by William Ruto. That I think starts the journey towards what you're saying as option one of a route to power. If you look at what has been reported today in the nation about Raila's supposed game plan, which talks about this demonstration, Sunday some demonstration, then he'll call for a boycott of some taxes, then he'll call for boycott of goods, then he'll call for engaging the international community. It doesn't seem like he's going for your option two, which is checking this government. First of all, he doesn't recognize this government. So it can only be option one, which is going for this government. Now tell me, what would be the way of changing this government if not overthrowing the constitution?
The people are supreme, even more supreme than the constitution. Eric. The people of Kenya are more supreme than that document we call the constitution, which we are the ones who brought to ourselves. Okay? Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, which, as you know, I have, that is a document that I was involved in one way or another in bringing it or for it where it came. Not drafting. I opposed it with William Ruto. I worked very closely with William Ruto to oppose that document. By the way, William Ruto is a personal friend.
You were involved in writing the constitution?
No. I was yes. I actually, there are certain, like the land chapter, I amended certain articles of the land chapter which will have affected the Ma community.
Okay, let's go back to the issue.
But the people are
more supreme,
supreme,
right?
Than the documents.
Even, over the Constitution.
Right.
Article 1 of the Constitution gives the people of Kenya the sovereign power to rule themselves through two means. Directly or through their democratically elected representatives.
Okay.
That is the Constitution of Kenya.
Okay.
If I was Raila Odinga, I would say now we have option. We are going back to allow the people of Kenya to go back to rule themselves directly. Direct rule.
How does that work?
I can tell him if he asks me.
I'm asking you, how does it work? How does ruling yourself directly work? What does it mean?
I don't want to get into that now because that will be putting the cat out of the... But it is in the Constitution. It is in the Constitution that there are two ways that the people can exercise their sovereignty. Directly or through... or through elected representatives.
I'm asking for civic education here.
I think that
Option
will...
one
yes.
of ruling yourself directly, what does that mean?
The people can overthrow the democratically elected the things that are called democratically. They can overthrow. The Constitution gives them the power to do that. And when they do that...
I'm going to ask you what overthrow means here.
Let me explain this. Let me explain this. And in countries where people have taken... now decided we are going to start afresh. You see, IBC is an institution that is created by the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court is an institution that is created by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
If the people of Kenya feel that these institutions have not served them, and they decide now we are going to dismantle.
We are going to be the judiciary.
We are going to dismantle
existing judiciary.
No, we are going to reconstitute. Okay, you dismantle and reconstitute. Even when you do, if you want to build another, if you destroy your home, you have to build another one because you can't stay outside. Yeah, and a constitution, is just a document. It is the concept. The concept itself does not have to be written. As you know, some countries don't have written constitutions. Okay, and that is and there is if some of us could advise, there are numerous ways within the law that Raila Odinga can exercise option 1. Okay, but that is a matter for closed door discussions. Okay, you don't of course give civic education on your strategies. So, but I'm saying that is not a strategy at the moment because, but yes, to answer you, I hope I've answered your question. That
well, you haven't, but let's move on.
The people are supreme to the Constitution.
Sawa.
Yeah.
Taking all things into consideration, Taitapal, do you think that Raila Odinga will be more effective as a leader of opposition?
Taking what? Everything.
Taking all things into consideration.
I think I don't think we are in a very convoluted situation as a country. We have Raila Odinga, who has been in opposition most of his life, but he seems now not to have a plan on how to run an opposition. And we have William Ruto, who has been in government most of his life, but he also seems not to know how to run a government. That is the situation we are faced in. It is a parody and a paradox. But I don't think right now Baba is focused on being an effective opposition. And that's why I said he has to decide. I will support him if he has a plan to regain his stolen victory. But we have to have a very clear plan. And we cannot be between the two plans. We cannot be between the two plans. And the other reason I feel that Baba may not if Baba is to succeed, he needs to reconstitute his team. Because you cannot go into a new strategy with a team that failed you.
Who needs to go?
There are people who must go.
Who?
I don't want to mention names here because I am known for name calling.
What do they do? What do they do?
They mislead Baba, and they also betray him, and they tell all his secrets and his strategies to the opponent. And so, like for example, when Baba called some of us and he told us about the whistleblower and the information that that is now out, we had that information was not supposed to be public until a certain point. But by the time in a few matter of days and weeks, it appeared the information was already almost viral. It just tells you Baba's inner circle is leaking like a broken pipe. And if you were to deal, William Ruto, the current president, I'm saying current because I'm hoping that Baba still has a plan. He said, "Hawa watu nitawapanga wa Shanghai." I take that very seriously. That kupanga wa Shanghai includes even the people you're talking to being pangwad and pangaing you. When Baba says Sunday rallies, who tells him that Sunday rallies, what will Sunday rallies accomplish in this country?
What do you want, a Monday?
It has to be a Monday. It has to be a daily thing. If you want the demonstrations, say Monday to Monday. What is Sunday going to achieve? It's in effect, it's not going to take us anywhere. And those are the advisors that I'm telling you are telling Baba, because they are taking instructions from the other side. That's how I'm here Sunday.
Oh, so they're double agents.
Yeah, of course.
Saitaba Ole Kanchori is the former chief agent for the former presidential candidate in the 2022 general election. And he's been here saying, well, we need some clear direction from our leader. And we hope that we'll get that clear direction then from your leader. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. 9 a.m.
Thank you, guys.
Good morning, this is Newsroom. I'm Dennis Aseto. Kenya's former envoy to China, Sarah Serem, officially assumed her office today as the chairperson of the Post Bank Board. Serem was appointed to the position of the chairperson of the bank's board of directors for a period of 3 years, with effect from January 13th, 2023. Speaking during her official assumption of office today, Serem noted that she is delighted to return to Post Bank and is looking forward to a rigorous 3-year term. On his part, Post Bank Managing Director Raphael Lekolol expressed confidence in Serem's appointment. Serem replaces the outgoing chairperson, Notoras Bari Olesenteu, who served as the bank's board chairperson for 3 years. Now, the planned construction of the 13 billion shillings Ndarago 2 dam in Gatundu, North Kiambu County might not take off as initially expected after area residents refused to vacate the land set aside for putting up the public project. Officers from the Athi Water Services, who had toured Watathi village to allegedly conduct geotechnical survey and collect soil samples from various homes, were chased away by angry locals who burnt tires and barricaded roads, bringing activities in the township to a standstill. Eyewitnesses said that the Athi water officials initially agreed to hold their survey only to attempt to circumvent the angry mob by using an alternative route. After area residents got wind of the said activities, the protest further escalated as locals proceeded to surround the Athi water officials' vehicle, effectively rendering it immobile. And former workers of Mumia's sugar company have written an open letter to President William Ruto to speed up the revival of the troubled miller. In the letter, the workers are urging the president to revoke the award of 20-year lease to Uganda-based Rai Group, whom they accused of running down the company instead of reviving it. The letter was signed by officials representing former Mumia's workers led by Vitalis Makoha, Patrick Mutimba, Anne Korba and Johnson Shiundu. The workers said by the time that they are being pushed out of the sugar miller, they had not been paid for 30 months. They are now calling on the president to instruct the National Treasury to pay the salary arrears and expedite its revival process. And at least 17 people were wounded when a bomb exploded in a market in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as the region continues to be plagued by insecurity. The bomb exploded in the Makapange market in Beni, where at least 17 people were wounded and were taken to medical facilities. The victims suffered injuries to their feet, arms and heads. Joseph Kakule, a local civil society leader, said at least 19 people were injured because of the shrapnel. Beni region is one of the most volatile areas in the east of DRC, which has been plagued by insecurity for nearly 30 years. On January 15th, an attack blamed on the Allied Democratic Forces, a group affiliated with Islamic State group jihadists, killed around 15 people in an evangelical Protestant church in Kasindi on the border with Uganda. And a group of 27 herders were killed and several others injured In Nigeria, the herders and their cattle were in Rukobi, a village on the border between Nasarawa and Benue State, when a bomb exploded in their midst. An umbrella group representing herders said the bomb was dropped by a Nigerian military jet. Herders and farmers in central Nigeria have been clashing over grazing and water rights for decades, but the violence has worsened in recent years after some herders joined criminal gangs that raid villages, killing and burning homes. Last Thursday, 9 people were killed when suspected herders opened fire outside a camp for people displaced by early attacks near Mukurdi, the capital of Benue State, according to local officials. And Pope Francis has criticized laws that criminalize homosexuality as unjust, saying God loves all children just as they are, and called on Catholic bishops who support the laws to welcome LGBTQ people into the church. Francis acknowledged that Catholic bishops in some parts of the world support laws that criminalize homosexuality or discriminate against the LGBTQ community, and he himself referred to the issue in terms of sin. But he attributed such attributes to cultural backgrounds and said bishops in particular need to undergo a process of change to recognize the dignity of everyone. Some 67 countries or jurisdictions worldwide criminalize consensual same-sex sexual activity, 11 of which can or do impose the death penalty, according to the Human Dignity Trust, which works to end such laws. Experts say even when their laws are not enforced, they contribute to harassment, stigmatization, and violence against LGBTQ people. Now, Romanian prosecutors further questioned influencer Andrew Tate over alleged human trafficking and rape, with the British-American national denouncing the case brought against him as void. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so looking a little bit better in the city. Oh, no, that's not true. There's traffic coming in from the Thika Superhighway, and it's really busy. We're also looking at it still heavy on Waiaki Way. And this is coming in from James Gishuru. It is looking a little bit better coming off Gong Road. And Gitanga, Naivasha, that seems to be thinning out as well. Coming in from the eastern part of the city, Jogo Road is not as heavy. Landis Road has done very well today, getting through towards that Kamkunji roundabout area. A lot better now. Mombasa Road didn't seem to have more than just a hiccup earlier on in traffic hours, so that seems to have cleared off. We're just seeing a little bit of movement going out towards North Airport Road through to Outer Ring, but the Eastern Bypass, Southern Bypass, Northern Bypass, looking good this morning. Let's talk about half an hour and see what it does. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room
today. 7 minutes after 9. Good morning. Thank you very much for keeping it locked on Spice FM or online, wherever you're watching us from, in the country or outside the country. We have 2 guests in the studio, and we'll be talking about that institution that we talked about, the US President's PEPFAR.
How do you forget planning in these 2 hours?
I remember everything.
You do?
Yeah. Start again, Eric. It's, what does PEPFAR stand for?
The US President's Emergency Plan for aid relief. AIDS relief.
Well done.
Well done.
Not
You
aid.
deserve a prize.
AIDS.
You deserve a prize.
The F stands for?
Four.
See? So the 2 guests who are joining us in the studio are Professor Elizabeth Bukusi, who is the Senior Principal Clinical Research Scientist at the Center for Microbiology Research at the Kenya Kenya Medical Research Institute. Okay. The other one is Professor Craig Cohen, who's a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, Department of that one.
Just twist your tongue around
it. Gynecology and reproductive sciences. How do you say that?
Obstetrics.
Yeah. OBGYN.
Yes.
That's it. That's enough, right? We welcome them with the day's Proverb City.
Yes. Proverbs this week have been from the country of Angola. It is... No, that's not the one. Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree.
Don't despise the nut. One day it will become a palm tree. Okay. We're trying to figure out what probably this could have meant to the people of Angola at that point in time. So, Professor Cohen, what do you think they had in mind, the people of Angola?
I'm not sure about when was this quoted, or when was this written?
Many years ago.
Before Angola was even known as Angola.
As Angola.
Yes.
Well, don't despise the nut, because the nut can be hard. And the nut can be something that we don't really understand what its true purpose is. But in time, if the nut gets planted and it's tended to, the nut will grow into a palm tree, which will provide more nuts and also shade. And in Angola, I imagine in the summertime, in Angola it can get quite warm. So don't despise the nut.
It can be useful. Professor Bokusi, do you say the same?
I would say three different things, actually.
Okay.
Given maybe sort of using three different examples. I think don't despise small things because they can cause a big shift. Let's think about COVID. Tiny little virus. Stop the world. You know, if you had told us a few years ago that we would get to a point and time where nobody traveled, that flights were stopped, we wouldn't have believed you. We'd have said, there's nothing. We have the technology, we know everything. Yeah, we said, no. And it did happen. But, you know, the other two things I'll mention, sort of giving an example of that is, think about HIV, which is, I guess, what we're here to talk about. Again, you can't see it with the naked eye, tiny thing, but it has made such a world of difference. In the last 40 years, HIV has been a problem. But the last thing, again, not despising the nut because it can grow into a palm tree, is small beginnings can yield very, very big things. And we are here to talk about, PEPFAR. I think there's, small beginnings, and there's been a lot that has been done. Many lives changed. Many individuals who are alive today who might not otherwise have been alive if PEPFAR hadn't happened. So
tell us about PEPFAR now that you've actually brought it up. What is PEPFAR? When was it started? Who started it? Why?
You know, that's a good question for Dr. Cohen. He's the American in the room. So he should tell us about his president's...
The U.S. president's...
Yeah.
Okay.
Emergency.
Plan for...
It's relief.
It's relief.
F is for four.
F is for...
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a great question. And it's actually a great testament to George W. Bush, who, through his insight, I think arguably, we could argue this here, has probably been the recent president who's done the most for Africa from the American perspective. So he brought PEPFAR and really saw a huge need, and I think it came from his spiritual beliefs, his religious beliefs, and his really desire to have America to support countries that were really suffering and still do suffer from the AIDS pandemic. And so he brought together some of the sharpest minds, including Tony Fauci, who obviously has become quite well known during the COVID pandemic, but is very well known and just recently retired, in fact, about a month ago. Eric Gooseby, who's actually a professor at UCSF, and a handful of other people to help design what PEPFAR could become, which essentially ended up becoming the largest bilateral donor support for health in the world. And has now led to over $50 billion US, about $7 billion of that to Kenya alone, and leading to, as Professor Bakusi just mentioned, my friend Elizabeth, for almost 30 years now, to saving lots of lives and continues to provide tremendous support to the Kenyan government and to other governments throughout the continent and in other parts of the world.
So it continues to be. So when we think about the U.S. president, the question is then which one? But now that you've given that, it's President George W. Bush. But then it continues to sit in the office of the President of the United States, no matter who that be.
So it's under the Department of State, although it gets administered through different departments. So Health and Human Services, the Centers for Disease Control, USAID or USAID, and the Department of Defense are the three government agencies where it actually gets administered. It also, very importantly, as you know, there's a lot of divisive politics in our country as well. But it continues to have strong bilateral support both amongst Democrats and Republicans. So George W. Bush, Republican, followed by President Obama, Democrat, right? And even during, I shouldn't say even, but also during the Trump administration and then now by the Biden administration, had strong support from the administration. The program has changed, been modified throughout the various administrations, but it's continued to have strong support also in Congress, which you know can be a very divisive group of individuals that it's hard for them to decide.
When it was initiated, it was to address an emergency at the point. Should this fund, this program, this plan still be called emergency plan?
That's a good question. Because we think about an emergency as something that's, urgent, needs attention, and we often think that an emergency should come to an end within a certain period of time. The challenge with HIV is that even though we keep envisioning and thinking, we can almost see that we can get to the end of it. We haven't been able to get to the end of it. When you think about any country, regardless of how large the HIV-infected individual population is, the challenge is that there's always the potential, if there isn't control, that it could really devastate a country. And so the question is always, how do we ensure those who are already infected get the treatment they need to be able to live their lives in the best way possible? How do we stop new infections? And that has been the challenge. And the issue is that we do not have a cure. For many things, if you can find a cure and can find a good way of containing it, then the emergency is over and life can go back to normal. People are now not wearing masks because even though the COVID pandemic hasn't ended, we have a better handle on it. The initial early devastation that we're seeing is not quite the same anymore. The challenge with HIV is that we are still struggling 40 years on to be able to really have a good handle and to ensure the mechanisms put in place can truly be expanded in a way that makes meaningful change. And because we still do not have a way of curing it, it remains a problem. So in that sense, the emergency isn't over.
So was it meant to address access to treatment? Was it meant to address better testing and identification? Was it meant to address how to avoid contracting HIV? What exactly was at the point of design? What was the initial focus?
I can let me give you an example that's very relevant to this discussion and relevant to our experience. So Elizabeth and I co-founded a program or a project called FACES, Family AIDS Care and Education Services, a partnership between KEMRI and University of California, San Francisco, working with the Ministry of Health. These are called implementing partners. So FACES being one of the implementing partners, and we received our support from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. So usually you would get support, implementing partners get support from either CDC, Department of Defense, or USAID. For us, our connection in Western Kenya is with CDC. When we started that program in 2004, treatment was available to just a few percentage of the people living with HIV. And we're talking in regions, when we're talking in what was formerly called Nyanza province, we're talking prevalences of 15 to 20%, even higher in some regions. So of adults, imagine 1 in 5, and still in some of these regions, there's still 1 in 5 people, adults living with HIV. When we started, we had started in Kisumu and also in Nairobi. a small clinic in Nairobi at Kemri, we were asked to consider working in Suba. Suba, which is now part of Homa Bay County, had the highest prevalence of HIV in the country at about a third. So imagine, amongst, how many are we here? We're 5. So essentially, 2 of us would be living with HIV. And at the time, treatment was unavailable. MSF France, or part of MSF, which of course won the Nobel Peace Prize for their amazing work they've done, had established a toehold in Senna, it's called Suba District Hospital at the time, and they were treating a handful of individuals in a county or in a sub-county or region with about 200,000 people. So again, probably about 50,000 people living with HIV and maybe a few hundred of them receiving treatment. The other individuals were dying. I mean, it's not that long ago. I'm sure we remember, right? And we're old enough in this room to remember when our friends and our relatives were dying of HIV. Yet treatment was available. Treatment was available from 1996 when it was proven that if you take 3 drugs, antiretroviral treatment, you could extend one's life potentially to have a normal longevity, right? With a high quality of life. And even the drugs now are even better and even safer than they were back in that time. So CDC asked us to consider working there. And I remember going to Suba, which is a very beautiful area on the lake. I think one of the most beautiful parts of Kenya, in fact, including the islands like Mfangano and Rusinga Island. And going there and working with the community, working with the local Ministry of Health and other stakeholders to start to develop a program. In the end, the program transitioned to another implementing partner, but by the time we left, a very high proportion of the individuals living with HIV knew their status, were on life-saving treatment, and virally suppressed. Life-changing for that community. If you go to that community now, it looks very different than it did back in 2005 or so when we first started working there.
So the immediate intervention that like the PHASES program went for is awareness and sensitization on the need for testing, knowing your status. And then after that also then access to care and treatment. Would you say that that is what PHASES went with, like that was their first priority?
The reason it's a priority, and you really state it well, Eric, is if you don't know your status, you can't go for treatment. You have to start by getting tested. When you get tested, then if you're negative, the question is, how do you remain negative? If you're positive, how do you then access treatment? And as my colleague Cohen has said, then you can have longevity. You can continue with your business as usual. Just reflecting back, in those days, many homesteads had grandmothers taking care of orphans because there was a subset of the population that was just dying and no longer available. And as you know, in that part of the country, there's also something that's called wife inheritance that sometimes happens. So that could devastate a whole family because one person dies, and then someone inherits the widow, but they don't know what that person died of. And then suddenly you have a whole lot of individuals who die off. You have young children who are left, older people, and a whole gap. And so there were many orphans as a result of that. So it was important that people know their status because then they can make a decision about what they're going to do. Right. So getting people on treatment was priority. Then providing opportunities for prevention was a second one. But something important that PHASES did, and it was family AIDS care and education services as we called it, was we looked at a family approach. If you get tested, not just you alone, can we test everybody around you? Can we test your partner, your children? Can we encourage everybody to come and get tested that people know? And if we're getting you to come into clinic, we don't want a couple, one coming in one day, coming in another, then the child has a different day for appointment if they also need to come in. Can we be efficient? They all come in together so they can support each other. One of the challenges of people getting tested and knowing their status is even disclosing it. And for many women, it was a problem because they would get tested in antenatal care. It had been provided that anyone coming into antenatal care would have the option to opt out of testing. In other words, they test you by default. Not so much, shall we test you? Because then otherwise, people may not even bother to get tested, but let's test everybody unless they don't want to be tested. So they find out they're positive because of antenatal clinic, but now how do you go back? How do you say it? What if your partner doesn't want to get tested? One of the stories I remember from my visit to Suba was a young girl. She was 16 years old. She tested HIV positive. That was her 3rd pregnancy. She was married to a fisherman. She didn't know how to disclose. He was not willing to get tested. The person who made decisions within her home was her mother-in-law. And it was very difficult. Now, when you're 16, it's your 3rd baby, and you're HIV positive, what does the future look like for you?
Big question. As we look at that, I'm sure that there are many, many, many more examples of things like that in terms of the devastation then that was then apparent to people living with contracting. So what then did this relief in terms of a fund then present to this footprint of HIV then that was then in the country?
I mean, so these phases, again, developed over time. And the philosophy, part of the ethos, as Elizabeth mentioned, was that it was family-centered, right? So there are individuals living by themselves, but most people are connected with their family, extended families as well. And we wanted to be able to address some of the root problems as well as take care of the health needs. So I think the relief part had to do with essentially working with the local ministries of health, which gets all the way down to the health center, the dispensary, or at the larger facilities at the hospital, to help build local capacity. The ministries of health back then and today are stretched, right? The needs outstrip the actual ability to provide high quality services to the population. So Phases was able to come in, provide technical assistance, people on the ground. So Phases would hire people through the Ministry of Health, clinical officers, nurses, peer educators, community health workers, etc., and provide support for training of the leadership within, at that time, the districts, now the county, right? And that to help them to become the supervisors and the mentors of their teams, to empower them. In addition, Phases would provide the resources around for testing and also the drugs as well that are used that we've discussed. And really, I think something that sets Phases apart from many of the other implementing partners is that I think being rooted in 2 very strong academic institutions, Emory and University of California, San Francisco, innovation. And when I take a look at the PEPFAR programs in Kenya, compared to Tanzania and Uganda, the degree of innovation that comes from Kenya is extremely high, which has led to tremendous improvements in HIV care, not just in Kenya, but throughout Africa.
You know, there's a term that is often used when one is talking about HIV and AIDS. It's called task shifting. Because funding comes in, care and treatment has to fall under the Ministry of Health. And with the health institutions that exist within the country, it's new. One doesn't quite know where to fit it, how to deal with it. And yet you have this huge population of people who need help, probably beyond the boundaries of existing health facilities. How did Phases cope with this, meeting this need that was clearly there and went outside the boundaries of the existing health systems?
Well, it goes to the task shifting that you are talking about, task shifting, task sharing. And then there was also the idea that the ministry was already implementing, which was a community-centered approach. We had the community approach that was enabling the healthcare facilities to have community members who would meet, who would be organized, who would be trying to ensure that the health facility that they were part of was being appropriately resourced and managed to be able to provide the care. But going back to the task shifting that you mentioned, there are some things that can be done by cadres of individuals who can be trained, who don't necessarily have to have a very high level of professional training. They need training, yes, but there are tasks that can be done by others. And the whole idea of task shifting and task sharing was one that allowed systems to become very efficient. Among the things people complain about when they go to a healthcare facility is, I'm going to be sitting there for very long, for very many hours. The nurse or the doctor doesn't have to do everything. There are certain things that can be done by other healthcare workers, which then frees up the other cadres of staff to be able to do the higher tasks or higher functions that require their particular attention. So that was one of the important things that needed to happen within that space. So I would say that's one of the things that we did. But I want to give another example. Sometimes when someone is in a very remote setting, it's harder to offer certain clinical services because if you're unsure, you want to ask a question and you don't know who to talk to. So one of the things that the FACES program did was come up with what we call a call line, a hotline. We called it the Uliza, ask. And clinicians practicing in relatively remote areas had access to other more trained individuals who would be able to answer questions if they were putting people on care, if there were complications, if there were side effects, if there are things that they were seeing among their patients that they were not sure what they were treating or what they were dealing. It's essentially using telephones as a telemedicine way or being able to remotely manage patients well when they didn't have immediate access because they didn't have more highly trained clinicians on site. That Uliza line, from the initial work that FACE has done, went on to become a national program. NASCOP is the one that now runs it and provides it as a service available to all the clinicians all over the country. So that's the kind of innovation that Craig was talking about, that grew organically from within the program to be able to provide additional support for clinicians and improve care.
Let's take a break on that note. We'll continue right from there, from how PEPFAR and the PEPFAR programs were also supporting government programs and strategies. Time for that break. City, please tell the professors about Minute Maid and why they're seeing Minute Maid in front of them.
Well, these are learned individuals who understand exactly why these things are on the table. But let me take the view that they're not as learned as we think. And so I will explain to them in detail. Well, you see, this Minute Maid is actually a drink, a refreshing drink that does wonderful things to your palate and to you when you take it. Now, here we have a variety. There's mango nectar, there's apple, and there is tropical. Okay? Now, when you take a sip of this, what is guaranteed is not an aha moment, but
it's not aha. And it's not
It's not that one.
It is that? That's it. That's why we have Minute Maid. Every time you need a break and you need to grab some Minute Maid. 29 minutes to 10. Let's take this quick break. We have guests in the studio, and they are Professor Craig Cohen from the University of California, San Francisco, Department of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Sciences. I got it right.
Well done.
Yeah, and Professor Elizabeth Bukusi is the Senior Principal Clinical Research Scientist, Center for Microbiology Research at the Kenya Medical Research Institute. We are talking about PEPFAR, the U.S. President's emergency plan for AIDS relief.
Well done, Eric.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sleepwalking through the afternoon. Sleepwalking through the afternoon. Sleepwalking through the afternoon.
Don't live life on repeat. Enjoy your break moments with Minute Maid Delight, a treat that awakens your senses and fills you with vitality. So fill those break moments with the indulgent sensations of Minute Maid, featuring delicious mango, tropical and apple flavors. Minute Maid, filled with life.
Mchezaji bora duniani anayetarajiwa mwaka huu, Mkenya. Mwimbaji bora anayetarajiwa au mfanyikazi bora wa benki duniani, Mkenya. Mwelekezi bora wa sinema anayetarajiwa, Mkenya. Rais wa taifa anayetarajiwa, mwanasoka bora, mwanariadha bora, daktari bora, rubani bora anayetarajiwa. Nani anayeelekeza script bora? Umepata. Mkenya. Lakini hili linawezekana vipi? Ni rahisi. Hebu fikiria, iwapo Wakenya hawangekuwa na wasiwasi kuhusu bills za hospitali. Hii leo kikwazo kikuu kutofaulu ni huduma za afya, kwa sababu pesa ambazo zingetumika kufuata ndoto zako hutumika kununua dawa. Lakini ukiwa na Universal Healthcare kutoka NHIF kwa shilingi 500 pekee kila mwezi, Wakenya wote wanaweza kumudu huduma za afya. Hili litaanza ikiwa wewe mwenye uwezo wa kulipa utaanza kulipa, ili familia yako na Wakenya ambao ndoto zao zimekwama waanze kuota tena. Mkenya mmoja maarufu alisema, all dreams are valid. Hii ni kweli. Ikiwa hujajisajili kama memba wa NHIF, tembelea kituo cha NHIF ama huduma center yote nchini. Bonyeza *155# kujisajili au download My NHIF app kwa Google Play na Apple Store. UHC NHIF Super Cover. Sasa sote tuko sawa.
UHC Super Cover NHIF.
All right, 19 degrees and sunny conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 28 through today. 29 will be the high in a sunny Nakuru, and it's 16 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 28. We'll see highs of 26 in Eldoret, where it is currently 17 and sunny. Mostly cloudy at 29 in Mombasa, highs of 32 and highs of 31 in a mostly sunny Malindi at 28. 24 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 31 and highs of 32 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 25. A haze over Kampala skies at 23, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam, where it is sunny at 29. Johannesburg is partly sunny at 18, highs of 26, and cloudy in Lagos at 26, going to highs of 33. We'll see highs of 32 in Kinshasa, where it's cloudy at 24. It's -1 in Beijing going into Thursday evening. We'll see highs of 1 and lows of -10. Cloudy in Paris at 0, highs of 5 and 8 degrees, and cloudy in London at 4 at the moment. Rain showers in New York at 10. We'll see highs of just that and lows of 1.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, much better now. We're inching out of traffic hour as the minutes go by on the Thika Superhighway. Much better coming in through the Muthaiga Square. But we're seeing still heavy traffic right around Gigiri, United Nations Avenue, Limuru Road, coming in from Village Market. Apart from that, I think we're out of the thicket, as it were. On Mombasa Road, going out into the city, you should be all right. Just that little nook before the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and then out towards Haile Selassie is what you have to contend with. Apart from that, we're all good. Through the morning, talk to us on Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The conversation continues at 4 minutes. Imagining PEPFAR and what the future looks like. The US President's emergency plan for AIDS relief. So you've told us, professors, that, you know, PEPFAR came in, there was a lot of money that was coming into the country, going into supporting the HIV space in the country through implementing partners, where there was technical assistance, there was human resource capacity building, there was also capacity building in terms of training for government officers, there was provision of technical assistance like giving the resources, the testing kits, the care and treatment and all. Well, at the same time, the government was also running its own programs on the side, like coming up with, you know, policies and all on how to address HIV. We had the formation of the National AIDS Control Council, or NASCO, that was looking at AIDS and STIs and all. These things, as they were running, money was going into the community. And a lot of it is coming from PEPFAR. Some of the money is coming also from Global Fund, other donors, coming from government itself. All right. So at what point were you linking up with the government to see what is the government plan and where do we need to fill in the gaps. And was there a plan, like, so you're coming in to fill this gap and the government knows, so here we have support coming in from PEPFAR and we shall let them do this and we tackle the other. Was there any kind of harmonized work plan?
You know, the clinics in which we've been implementing care are government clinics, and also the faith-based or the other non-for-profit clinics. And there was even a section that has been supporting private clinics and private services. So it was not like they were in parallel. They were actually working together. So the implementing partners were held accountable to really working with government partners. And the reporting lines have really been within the government systems, because among the things that were strengthening were the government reporting systems and the health information, medical information systems, to ensure that all the things that were happening, people who were under care, people who were having prevention services, that all this would be captured. So they were not really parallel, they were more working in tandem. The support, however, and as Craig mentioned earlier, even when healthcare workers came into work, they would be working at government health facility or health facilities, reporting to the government systems. The only thing was that they would have their salaries paid and supported from these mechanisms to ensure that they were working. And then the support supervision would happen from the implementing partners and the government Ministry of Health individuals on the ground. So that's really the way it's worked. But as you rightly say, part of this has been working, for example, with NASCOP, because we are following guidelines and following policies that are being implemented through NASCOP. When pre-exposure prophylaxis, we call it PrEP, HIV PrEP became available, the government and the ministry needed to first accept and ensure that drugs were registered and then provide it as a policy, provide training programs to roll it out. Now, as implementing partners, the role would be that you walk alongside government to make sure or support the functions of government, make sure people can be trained, that the guidelines are available, the training is rolled out. Once people are trained, then the services are provided. So it's really entrenched within the government services. But the question you ask, which maybe I'll throw back to Craig to answer, is about, yes, the funding has been there, but over a period of time, there has been a decline.
I just want to bring up one other point, and I'll address that. Interesting point. So, again, I mentioned innovation. Innovation is really a driver to lead to the improvement and efficiency of HIV healthcare, ultimately to benefit the people of Kenya, the people living with HIV, the people at risk of HIV. And because there have been historically these different implementing partners working in different counties and different regions, and really we're focusing on high burden counties, like in Western Kenya, for example, there are differences that have emerged. And I think some of the challenges that we had was not working with the Ministry of Health in Kisumu, but perhaps trying to get the lessons learned about how we could expand some of the approaches that FACES was taking. And I'll give you an example in a moment, to then benefit people in other either neighboring or other adjacent counties. So an example is what's called PMTCT. Another tongue twister, means prevention of mother-to-child transmission. Some people have called it the prevention of parent-to-child transmission, to take some of the gendered aspect out of that. Okay. So PMTCT. Right, PMTCT rates, so this is the trying to eliminate the transmission of the virus from the mother, which can happen either in utero or during pregnancy, at birth, or during the breastfeeding period, right? And we have different interventions that limit and can really eliminate to less than 1%, where without drugs and treatment, transmission occurs in about 1/3 of infants that are born to mothers living with HIV. So we pushed, Elizabeth and I pushed the FACES team, amazing team of individuals, to work with the ministry when we started our last 5-year period. So usually we get these cooperative agreements or these grants for 5-year periods. It started at the time when we started, it was about 6%. So 6% of children being born to women living with HIV were then themselves become HIV infected. Of course, they would then receive treatment. But our goal was to really eliminate HIV transmission. We pushed the team, and by the time that FACES ended, we were at about 2%. Still too high. We would like to get it below 1% as it is in the US, and we have the ability to do so. In the country, PMTCT rates are between 8 to 9%. So what is it that FACES was doing that isn't happening in the other counties that could, with lessons learned from what was happening in Kisumu, a very high burden county, could be extrapolated to the other counties to build best practices and evaluate to, again, limit the number of children being born to HIV. And this is where one of the benefits of devolution of the government in Kenya is that essentially there are 47 governments and then the national government, right? So theoretically, there's all these different experiments going on. But I think where NASCOP comes in and NAC, which has been renamed, and don't ask me what their new name is.
National Syndemic Control Council. National Syndemic Control Council.
Okay. So those bodies have the ability, and they have to essentially develop national policies that can get picked up and adopted by the various county governments to then benefit. Because I'm sure there are other programs in other counties that are doing things better than what FACES was doing as well that we could have learned from. And there were opportunities for sharing, but I think that accountability is something that could be still built upon as we move forward with how PEPFAR is partnering with the government.
So there are just so many layers here. When we talk about accountability of government, we talk about funding, which is huge when we talk about healthcare in the country. Not just with HIV, but, across the board to so many other things. Whether you want to talk about malaria, I want to talk about most current COVID. The funding issue has always, been a big one. So a couple of years ago, the PEPFAR funding that we saw was going to reduce came to light when we were looking at blood donations in the country. And that whole thing popped off and we're like, okay, so what happens here? And it was clear that, there was attention that was drawn to, look, over the next 5 years, it will reduce significantly. But then the glaring question became, will government, in terms of the responsibility for healthcare, be able to handle things, mirror the action, or improve with the capacity it has, with the available resources it has? Having worked, Prof, with FACES and seen what needed to be done to reach where we are today, looking at government responsibility and looking at dwindling funding, will the government be able to mirror or surpass what PEPFAR has been able to initiate in the country?
It's a really hard question, Odu. It can, depending on two things. One is the willingness and ability to put in funding. The second, I'll go back to what Craig said, innovation. And innovation is a lot about doing more with less, finding new ways, finding new efficiencies of being able to do things. One of the things that we have done, and as Craig said, we've worked together for close to 30 years now, and we came into the field really from an area of research. Our initial interest was around research, and it was actually sexually transmitted infection research, and HIV can be sexually transmitted. And so that's where we entered the HIV field from. But from the research angle, the question is always, what else can you do and how can you do it differently? So to me, the government can, by putting funds and increasing efficiency, but also by doing research. This is where I make a plug for KEMRI as a research institution. KEMRI is capable of doing a lot. But the amount of funding that we are getting, and even the amount of funding that has been committed by the Kenya government in general, that they should be giving to research, not necessarily just to KEMRI, but to research, we haven't met the target that we had said we would meet. If we can put more money into research, find innovation, and then as we innovate, as Craig was saying, ensure lessons learned are spread across and utilized, then yes, we would be able to do even more than has been done for us.
There's this saying that one comes across in this country: a new broom sweeps clean. That's anecdotal. I'm not certain that it can sweep cleaner than an old broom, but PEPFAR has a new global leader, Ambassador John Kengasong. He was CDC Africa's boss. Now, new to the job, new broom. If one were to look at the task ahead of him and one were to look at the needs of the countries that receive PEPFAR funding, I'll be specific, like I'll plug into now Kenya and say Kenya's needs. As people who've been practitioners and people who've been in this work of care and treatment for the longest possible time, beyond adolescence, and as PEPFAR celebrates their 20th year anniversary, again, they've moved out of adolescence as well. Way forward, what could one suggest from a practical perspective as people who've been in this field and have worked in it for a long time?
Craig, do you want to go first?
Please.
That's a really hard one. You know, during the previous PEPFAR boss's tenure, Debbie Burks pushed a lot on using evidence-based decision-making. And she would really push the envelope on granular. Let's go down, let's look at what the issues are, and let's make decisions based on the data we actually have. And that would be the way to truly make a difference. And I think there were some important decisions made and important innovations and choices that resulted in some very good decision-making. However, the current challenge, I think, is based on the amount of funding that is available, and then based on what we have on the ground, including the COVID pandemic. That's where the challenge is. Right now, we also have a lot of non-communicable diseases that have become very prominent within a lot of low and middle-income countries.
Yeah.
And so you're not only dealing with the challenges of just HIV, there's a lot of other problems. You know, heart diseases, cancer. Those are big problems right now. I think every week in Kenya, you probably, if you're on enough WhatsApp groups, there's someone raising funds for somebody to go somewhere. Or you find yourself being added to a group of someone you don't even know. You know someone who knows someone who knows them. So those are the challenges. And HIV care in the last 20 years has provided a platform in which improving services for those who are living with HIV has resulted in also improving or raising standards of care for everybody else. And the question is, how do we now leverage on this? Even as we focus on issues of HIV care, how do we deal with a population that is HIV infected, that is aging and has more comorbidities, but even the rest of the Kenyan population, or the rest of the individuals, also have a lot more non-communicable diseases to deal with in this field? And how do we ensure, as the funding goes down, that the care that is provided remains good? And because of the challenge that people have consistently raised, saying, if someone is HIV positive, they end up with services which they're not paying for. But if I have anything else, and I may just have as limited resources as the next person who happens to be HIV positive, you're telling me to pay for the services. Is there equity in that? Is there justice? So I think the challenge that's going to be for the funding and the opportunities, how do you truly leverage the funding that's available to still provide quality care, make sure you're taking care of the comorbid conditions, but also ensure that the general population that has so many other concerns is also appropriately catered for with diminishing funds.
So let me continue with those thoughts, but expand a little bit. And actually, Elizabeth and I were speaking as we were waiting earlier this morning. So Kenya signed on to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, just very basically, it looks at health and well-being in a much broader context. So while we're focusing, and FACES has been very focused on health, obviously poverty, which is called Sustainable Development Goal 1, affects health. People who are impoverished in general have poor health outcomes. People who are food insecure and hungry, Sustainable Development Goal 2, also have poor health outcomes and been directly related to poor health outcomes, increased risk of acquiring HIV, and also poor health outcomes among people living with HIV. FACES as a platform has looked to connect these other areas of ending poverty and ending food insecurity, which is rampant. 80% of the patients that we catered to in Kisumu County and Homa Bay and Migori counties were moderately to food insecure. Some of our listeners today don't know where their food is coming from, don't know how they're going to feed their children. Imagine, I mean, I feel bad and then we have these other externalities that we have very little responsibility for, although we do have individual responsibility. Climate change. As precipitation becomes more unpredictable, where Kenya may be facing a drought right now, which is going to affect food production and food security. Imagine again about how that is linked directly to the health outcomes that we're talking about around HIV, but also to the non-communicable diseases, heart disease, diabetes. Stunting in children is rampant in parts of Kenya. Reproductive health, unplanned pregnancies. So I think a vision for PEPFAR to consider is broadening the construct while still continuing to support governments, both local at the county level in Kenya as well as national, to take on greater and greater responsibility, which will happen. It's going to happen. The people will demand it. The people need the care and treatment. But to broaden the construct to include looking at how partnerships with other ministries and other civil society partners, both on the private sector and in the NGO sector, to look at how we can improve food security in the country, how we can help to advance the economy, not just to benefit the few, but to benefit the many, and end poverty in this country. I remember I just read recently, and I was reminded, in the early 70s, South Korea's economy and Kenya's economy were on par, right? South Korea actually looked to Kenya for advice on how they can improve their economy. South Korean economy, their per capita GDP is 40 times that of Kenya now. Why did that happen? Kenyans are smart. It's not lack of intelligence, it's not lack of innovation. It's policies and other aspects that I'm sure this Situation Room is dealing with on a daily basis. And I think PEPFAR, with good governance and support and government-to-government collaboration, can help serve as a catalyst for the Kenyan government to continue to innovate, continue to develop efficient models that help to end the HIV pandemic as we know it, and end poverty and food security, and bring other benefits to society.
Can I ask, why is the PEPFAR fund reducing? And is it going to come to an end? Is it a plan? Is it a change of policy by the US government? Was this part of the program?
So it's always been part of the plan. That again, remember, it's called the emergency relief.
Yeah.
So the emergencies are supposed to end. So it was always targeted to end. In fact, it should have ended a long time ago, but due again to support from frankly, the U.S. citizens, taxpayers, broad support, whether one identifies as Republican or Democrat or independent, broad support. But at the same time, acknowledging that countries need to take on and will take on greater ownership. For example, a majority of the program in South Africa, which has the largest epidemic of HIV in the world, PEPFAR support has declined precipitously as the government itself, South African government, has taken on the leading role and continues to for quite a while. So that transition is happening at different time points in different countries. Some countries like Kenya are well positioned to continue to take over these programs. Other governments in other countries are not as well prepared and will require support for a longer period of time. So it is planned that whether PEPFAR will end, it will end as we've known it, it will transition. I'm obviously not the policymaker, so I can't answer those questions. And part of it is dependent upon administration and also the government in Congress.
CT, final question.
Would you say that PEPFAR as a body, and I'm talking about the local PEPFAR representation, say in Kenya, would you say that through their partnerships that they have a clear handle on understanding what the needs are and how to innovate to meet these needs?
That's a loaded question, Siti.
Yes, it is.
You know, the easiest thing is to do what you usually say. You say yes and no. And then not say anything else beyond that. So someone can decide which part of yes and which part of no, you know. I think the needs are always changing and it's difficult to always keep a handle on them. But in general, I would say that they have made attempts to really have a good idea of what it is that's going on. And because they work very closely with NASCOP, and NASCOP does get a lot of information from the implementing partners. There are task forces that meet, different ones addressing different aspects, that there has generally been a lot of support. And I would say in general, the working relationships have been good and are going in the right direction. More can be done without a shadow of a doubt. There's always space for improvement. You know, like parents, now that kids are going back to school, people always say, you know, has done well, but can achieve higher or more
Has
effort is
potential
needed,
to.
has potential. So there's potential and more effort, they could definitely do better.
But let me just add to that. So every year, the U.S. government agencies, along with the Kenyan government, meet and create what's called the Country Operational Plan, or COP. So now we're in COP, I think, 23. I would encourage the U.S. government and Kenyan government to work together to create that as a more transparent process. We are told, when we were implementing partners as FACES, we were told this is the COP and this is what you will do. Well, how is that determined? Why did we not have a direct say as the people on the ground, and even more importantly, the real providers on the ground, and also the patients who are living with HIV and are affected by this pandemic directly? Why isn't it a more transparent process? I think that would be a really interesting way to move forward, as we want transparency in government.
That's a loaded answer. Professors, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you for all the good work that you've done for the last, how many years again? Well, not
we
your
were on the
friendship.
ground for a good 16 years.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Asante sana. Professor Elizabeth Bukusi is the Senior Principal Clinical Research Scientist, Center for Microbiology Research at KEMRI. And Professor Craig Cohen is a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, Department of Obstetrics.
Well, at least by 10 o'clock I had said something like it, so, you know.
Gynecology and Reproductive Sciences. We'll be talking about PEPFAR and the future. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life